Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, June 6th. We are here live. It is time for a free-for-all. Anything goes today. We don't have any guests. We don't have any themes. In fact, we don't have a time limit today either because Mike and Kevin Beckett are traveling, so there is no rolling toe today. So you can either pick up the phone and give me a call. We'll talk about something, or maybe I'll take the day off today. Just kidding. We've got time. Phone lines are open. If you're listening on the app, you can hit that call now button. If you are watching on the live stream, which I just got up and running, you can pick up the phone and give us a call at 855-950-3835. We can talk about anything at all. You know what might be fun? If you feel like doing it, let's do some book reviews today. Give me some book recommendations. I've still got plenty of books on my Kindle to catch up on, but I've been doing more reading lately and enjoying it, so I'm looking for some more book recommendations. I might as well load that thing up. We do have some calls coming in. We'll get to those here in just a couple minutes, so keep them coming. We'll get to those here in a second. I don't have a whole lot today. I was torturing myself reading about the FMCSA's registration overhaul push. Like the government, this seems way overcomplicated. You know, in some ways, in a sense, maybe they are kind of doing what I've asked them to do, or what I've questioned. I don't ask them to do anything. What I questioned about why we didn't do back in 1980 or 81, the Motor Carrier Act, why we left the authority process in place just the way it was. And now they're looking to change that process. It's a new registration. Most of what they're trying to do looks like it's all about fraud, which is fine. Honestly, I think they'd be better off just throw out the whole process and start over. What they're really doing is modifying the process that's already in place. The U.S. DOT number will now be the only number. I've never understood why we had the DOT number process first, then the MC number. That is a true holdout from authority. You could have a DOT number but not have authority. That was for lots of reasons. You hauled exempt products, you didn't meet the weight requirements. There was all kinds of reasons why you might need a DOT number to operate a commercial vehicle on the roads, but you didn't need a carrier number, a motor carrier number, because there's no such thing anymore. There really isn't an authority process, or there shouldn't be. Call it a registration process. And we need to know certain things for safety reasons. Now we need to know some things for fraud reasons, but it's really not authority anymore. The word doesn't even make sense. When authority truly mattered, the word meant a lot. You either had authority to move freight in a specific lane, or you didn't. And if you didn't, you had to trip lease to somebody who did. There was no process to decide whether or not the government needed to give anybody authority. That's the big difference. The government used to just say, no, we're not giving you authority. We don't think we need any new authority. We have enough trucks in the market. We're not going to allow any more. Now, it didn't stop trucks from being in the market because you could lease, but it really determined who controlled the freight and who controlled the rates at the time. Now, the funny thing is, the people who believe, the groups like NOAA and these other groups that keep popping up, and then disappearing and then coming back under different names. And um, the crazy thing is, under that system, somebody did control the rates. The government, the last group in the world we want controlling anything about money. The government controlled the rates in trucking through the authority process. Y- what we just went through, this big run up in new trucks, new authorities, rates were high, everybody jumps in, then the market adjusts like it always will. Now we have too many trucks, so rates are going to go down. That's what will happen. And then we have to wait till enough capacity washes out of the market and it will shift just like it always does. Now the market controls the market the way it should be. But they actually want to go back to allowing the government to control the freight rates and control the market. Some people say, well, then we wouldn't have all these crazy ups and downs. Yeah, this is communism, government running business. It's the last thing we want. It is really the people who think this way just can't compete or don't want to compete. They want to know that if they take a risk and buy a truck, they're going to get paid a certain rate. Well, then there's no risk. Business is risky. They want to take away the risk. That also takes away all the advantages. They don't seem to understand that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through this process because it looks fairly complicated. Um, here's all I can see when I see this. It actually, if I look at what they're doing, it all makes sense. There's nothing in here really stupid, but I don't see them getting it done. Why would we expect the FMCSA to get anything done on this process? They never got anything done on the inspection. Now that's become a problem for the industry. The FMCSA has had years and years to do this, and they've done less than 10%. Why do we think they can put this new complicated process in place and make it work? Nothing wrong with the process. I read through it. It makes some sense. I don't think they'll get it done. All right. Calls are coming in. Looks like lots of calls are coming in. We better get to them. Let's go to New Mexico. Tom, welcome. I I saw them this morning. I didn't get a chance to follow any of the links, and I think somebody else. I think several people have been sending me that one, so it must be important. Uh, but bifidobacteria, bifidobacteria. Th- th- there there does seem to be. I yelled at somebody yesterday. I think it was, or sometime this week, for confusing causation and correlation. There is clearly correlation between gut bacteria and autism rates. There's clearly correlation between all vaccines and autism rates. That's the one they've tried to hide forever. That's the one that they really don't want getting out. That's the one that, um, whether you like him or hate him, and look, I would not vote for him for president, but I love what Kennedy is. Yeah, yeah. I I love what Kennedy has done around, um, autism and vaccines and all those things. That doesn't mean I want the guy to be president. But there he has been yeah, he's way, way, way too liberal on way too many things for me. His whole green energy take, there's a bunch of things, but that doesn't mean I can't agree with him on some big issues here, and I do. I think he's done more for that than just about anybody, but that's the one they don't want you talking about. But whether it's let me say one more thing about that. Whether it is because again, it's correlation right now, and we do have to be careful. We've all been fooled over time by correlation that turns out really isn't causation. So there's a strong correlation. But here's what we know. Something in the last 100 years and whatever the something is keeps accelerating. That's a clue. So there was some impact, maybe 100 years ago, but there's a much bigger impact now around the rates of vaccines and the rates of autism. That's the correlation, but we can correlate lots of things that have nothing to do with each other. The fact that um, eating ice cream causes more people to drown. Well, no, the correlation. It's just a correlation. We eat more ice cream in the summertime and more people drown in the summertime. That's what a correlation is, and it can be just a coincidence that there's no true connection between the two. For some reason, they just move together, and we know why. People swim more in hot weather, they eat more ice cream in hot weather. But ice cream does not cause drowning. That's the easiest explanation I have for correlation and causation. So the autism rates in the United States have exploded. I mean, it's insane. Right, but couldn't we yeah, I get that. That's the correlation. We haven't proved it as causation yet, or if we have, it's being hidden, and censored and right, but could it also just be doesn't it also correlate with the corruption of our food supply? Haven't we added all kinds of crazy chemicals and colors? And I mean, there has been some work around just one specific red dye. So, I, again, I'm going to be very, very careful to say yes. It's correlation right now, and we should be working pretty hard to figure out why we have so many kids becoming autistic. Maybe it's not the vaccine, but maybe it is, and we need to figure it out, not keep trying to cover it up. No. Well, let's look at it this way. And I'll go back to what Dr. Davis said when he was on the show. As far as gut bacteria goes right now, it's 1981, and you're trying to figure out what a computer does. No, 81. No, no. What he's saying? No, 1981. What he's saying is we now know that gut bacteria exists and it's really important. Just like in 1981, we knew computers existed. We thought they were probably going to be important, but we didn't know what the hell we were going to do with these things. I can remember thinking that. I can remember thinking I had built a couple of computers while I was in the military, just out of parts from Radio Shack, and all you could do with them was play games. So it was really like a game console more than anything else. And I had, it was better than Pong. It was much better. They were word games actually. The computer I built, all you could see on the screen was text. There were no graphics of any kind. It was just text. And the text would be, you'd load up the game, and the game would say, you're standing in front of a door, and there's a door knocker and a doorknob, and the door's locked, and then that's it. And you would have to say, okay, open the door. You can't open the door, it's locked. Unlock the door. You can't unlock the door, you don't have a key. Find the key. Where should I look for the key? I mean, that was the game. And you had to work. That was the game. And you had to get through the maze or the building or whatever it was and get to the end and get the treasure. But it was a word game. You had to ask and answer. And so, but that's all I knew a computer could do at that time. But I bought a truck and I was getting into business, and I thought, I think businesses are probably going to use computers, but I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. Right. I don't use it for what? Right. Oh,
that stock just individually for AI. Will that be like Apple in 20 years? You'll see, I could have got that for 1,800. You know what I mean?
Tom,
Will that be like if he
that
just held it? Yeah.
if I knew that, none of us would have to work anymore.
Well,
If you could predict a
I
stock
understand
like
that,
Apple
but
or Tesla or any of them, nobody would ever have to work. The potential on how much money you could make if you knew that for sure is unlimited. But we can never ever know that for sure.
is that no? But I mean, don't you think that maybe? I mean, for $1,800, you know what I mean? Isn't that worth just rolling the dice on it and putting it in the safe deposit box and leaving it alone? You know what I mean? Forgetting all about it.
Not my opinion.
Done deal.
Not my opinion. I could go back through.
Okay, I'll call you in 10 years.
Well, please do. And if we both remember and we can have this conversation again, my answer is going to be, well, yeah, but tell me the next stock that's going to do it. That you're so confident of,
Right.
you will put your money into it and just wait. It's always easy to look back and say, oh my God, all I would have had to have done is put $1,000 in this stock. But I will promise you this, based on what I know about investing, and I'll go back and give you a good example at the time. One of the real keys in investing, long-term, not taking, crazy risks, is you should really know the companies you're investing in inside and out, because there's so much that could happen. So it's a lot of work to really just research one company to know whether or not this is something I want to invest in. Here's a good example, Microsoft. Do you think we could go back and look and say, oh my God? But here's what I will tell you. I at the time, I was starting to learn investing and I was starting to learn computers. I had DOS, which was how you ran the early PCs, was through DOS, a disk operating system. And the first DOS program I had was MS-DOS. You know what that stands for?
MS stuff, yeah. Microsoft. Sure.
Microsoft DOS. They were not
the only. That's what everybody had.
But they weren't the only one. There were at least two other DOS programs at the time. I'm drawing a blank on the names of them right now. It might come to me. There were at least two others. One of them was 10 times better than Microsoft in every way you could think of. They already, at the time, back then, one of our big problems was hard drive space was really expensive. It was like $1 a megabyte. We're not talking gigabytes or terabytes. $1 a megabyte. Right. So you look at today, and one couple minute videos is a gigabyte plus. You would have had to have spent $1,000 on a hard drive just to store that one video file for a couple minutes. So hard drive space was critical.
Isn't that crazy?
You could buy programs that they were called disk doublers. They would compress all your data so you got more space, and then they had to kind of move the data on and off the disk, so it did slow things down somewhat, but it gave you more space. Now, the problem was the third-party programs didn't always work well with the operating system. When they updated the operating system, they'd break these third-party programs. Well, I found this other DOS that already had disk doubling built in. And it had all these other features that were built into the operating system. And with Microsoft, you had to go get a third party, and it was a mess at the time. I looked at that and said, oh, hell no, I'd never invest in that company. It's garbage. And then Windows came out. My first version of Windows wasn't 1, but it was 2.0. That's a long, long way back on Windows. What a mess that program was. There were 2 other competing programs at the time that were way better. So I would never have invested in Microsoft based on all that. But you know what Bill Gates was really good at? He wasn't all that great at writing software, honestly. He just wasn't. You know what he was good at?
About making his programs only run on his stuff?
Well, marketing. He was just really good at marketing.
Okay.
That was his strength. It wasn't programming. Most Microsoft products suck.
And you know what? And they I don't know. I'm not a big computer guy, but they're the number 1 company with $3.2 trillion this morning. They're worth. And you know who's second? The second largest company?
Was it Apple? I mean, they usually swap spots.
Apple just dropped to third.
Did they drop to third?
That NVIDIA took.
That's right.
Took over number 2.
And who would have thought that? See, there's another one. Who would? Nobody talks about NVIDIA. Nobody would have been investing in NVIDIA 20 years ago. They had so many competitors back then.
They were around 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah, they were. NVIDIA's been around.
Yeah.
No, they've been around a long time. I mean, it seems to me, I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me that name NVIDIA has been around almost as long as I've been working on computers.
I don't know. I'll have to check into it, but
yeah.
But apparently they've taken over the market, though.
Well, let me ask you this:
so we'll see how that works out.
How many people do you think could even tell us what NVIDIA does?
Nobody.
Well, right. So how do you invest in?
I have no idea what
if you're
do.
investing in things like that, you are investing on pure speculation. And then what will happen in 10 years?
Well, I'm invested in
somebody
AI.
will.
That's the only thing I'm invested in.
That's really pure speculation.
They're the gold standard.
Well,
they're the gold standard of AI.
Here's what you have to be careful of, Tom. If AI is that important, and it is, there could be an entirely new technology pop up next week. If you look at the history of computing and technology, it's wild. Companies that were dominating a market just disappear completely because they're invested in one technology that gets replaced.
Yeah, you definitely have a point. I mean, how many of the people on the S&P 500 are around today from 1900?
Right.
You know,
so this is how we fall into this trap, though. 10 years from now, we'll look back and go, "Oh my God, why didn't we invest in NVIDIA?" Or we might look back and go, "NVIDIA, who? Who is that?"
Right.
Yeah,
that's $1,800 out of my pocket, right? I could, right, which would be worth $900 by then. A book review. Well,
yes.
Of course, the real Dr. Fauci that you won't read, and then the Rule and Cover Up was this new one. But American Buffalo. Now, I gave this to you about 1.5 years, 2 years ago when it came out. That's a really good, interesting book. That's Steve Ranelli. You know who he is?
No.
The bow hunter?
No.
He's the bow hunter. Anyway, he's really it's really a good book.
Okay. Are we talking novel kind of stuff or
No,
no?
it's about him pulling a buffalo license for one of the last herds of buffalo. While they actually they did the DNA test on him, and there's a herd of buffalo in Alaska, but they watch it really closely, and then they cull the herd every once in a while. And he's a big buffalo fan. He's a big hunter too, and it's about his buffalo hunt basically, and about how he got there, and he pulled a tag for there, and it's just just the hunt itself is an amazing story.
Interesting.
But it's just a really interesting thing. It's sort of sad that he shot a buffalo that he loves, but you know what I mean. But he went through hell to get it, and he packed it out and used every little bit of it. You know what I mean? It's not like he shot it and hung it on his wall.
You're right.
You
Right.
know? So
now that sounds good.
He did it. He did it right. It's a great book anyway.
I like that one. All right, it's going on my Kindle.
All right, I'll let you. I appreciate you. Okay,
right.
I'll talk to you later on. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Okay.
Let's continue on with the calls. Keep them coming. We have a true free-for-all for a Thursday today. Usually I only have an hour. I've got plenty of time today. Keep the calls coming. Hit that call now button on your app or dial 855-950-3835. If you're watching any of the live streams, I am kind of trying to monitor chat. So if you want to send some questions through there, I'll try to get to them. I see I have some fans listening today. I always find this kind of ironic. So listen to this. It says here, I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit. You're better off not listening to this dumb bastard. Referring to me, I assume, because I'm the one that they're watching the video. I find that interesting that somebody's saying you're better off not watching this dumb bastard when they seem to be watching this dumb bastard. That's kind of funny. Always haters. Let's get to some phone calls. Let's go to Illinois. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning. And speaking of morning, we all love our coffee in the morning. Yesterday on the health show, you talked to a few people who seem to be new to the idea of putting butter and oil in their coffee, only forgot to mention something.
Uh-oh.
It tastes a lot better blended up.
Oh, that's
nice and creamy and smooth than trying to just stir in butter and oil and drink that oil slick on top. Could be nauseating.
That's a really good point. I kind of went through this just recently. I'm trying to remember where I was. I was traveling and I was not prepared. And I was trying to come up with all kinds of ways. You can take forks and you can whip as fast as you want. You're just not going to get that fat blended in. And you're right. It's not nearly as pleasant that way. Very good point. So anybody that was listening yesterday, at the very least, you need one of those. We sell them in the store.
A milk frother.
A frother. That's it. You need the little battery-powered frothers at least, and they actually work really well. So when I'm traveling, I take a frother. We sell them in the store. They're cheap. They work well. They're small and light. At home, I do have a cordless boat motor, otherwise known as an immersion blender, and that thing works amazing. But yes, if you have to hand stir your coffee, it's not going to be the same experience.
Yeah, no. Matthew Broderick movie about the early video game where you got to type in everything. War Games.
War Games, okay.
It gets down to the point where they're like talking, the computer is going to win, but it's mutually assured destruction and blow up the whole planet.
I honestly...
Like there's actually military people hunting him down to figure out what he's doing.
Okay. So I will say this, and I've talked about the whole, game playing kind of thing, and the fact that just recently I bought an Xbox and started doing some game playing again. I go way back. I grew up playing video games. I am that generation. I know people think that I might be too old for that, but I was like 12 when Pong came out, I think. So I had Pong, and I grew up with Asteroids and Space Invaders and Frogger and Mario, and at some point though, and the point was when I bought a truck. Honestly, it was I played all through the military. I built the computers to play the word games that I talked about. But I will say this: I was more hooked on those word games than I was when the games started coming out with graphics and consoles. That was easier for me to just say, I probably shouldn't spend all this time playing games. I have a business to run. And I quit. And like I was saying earlier, I went decades, never touched a video game. But those word games to me were fascinating. That would hold my attention for hours and hours and hours. Boy, I could waste a lot of time on those things.
Like social media?
I actually think those games were probably that they had some good purpose. I'm not sure if social media has any good purpose anymore.
Right.
It's just designed to suck us in
Well,
and
yeah, they
take
kind
up
of
all our
teach,
time.
the games kind of teach strategic thinking.
Yeah, they really did. And I think that's why I was so fascinated by them and why I kept playing. It really changed the way you thought. It taught you new ways of thinking. And I think we should probably try to go back to some more of those games. The social media anymore, I'm on it all the time and I have to. It's where our business is. It's where our tribe is. But I think it's the downfall of our society. And I don't think that's overly dramatic.
Yeah, I try to spend some time on there with questions and helpful posts, but I can't spend too much time on there. Number one, I've got two young dogs who take up most of all my time and attention.
Yeah, they're worth it.
I had one more thought on yesterday's call. I forget his name, but the guy who recommended the truck fridge. I actually heard that recommendation from him a few years ago, 3.5 years ago now, just before we bought our current truck. And when we picked it up, it had this tiny little factory fridge in it. So on his recommendation, I got a fridge from Truck Fridge. And while the latch he talked about, after a little while, wear on the road, the latch doesn't work. So I use one of those baby-proof door holders to keep the fridge shut. The fridge and freezer work. I mean, 3.5 years later, bouncing around the country, it's working perfectly.
Excellent.
And it's bigger, and I love it.
Excellent. Good. So that used to be my recommendation, was just Truck Fridge itself. And I didn't really talk a whole lot about 12-volt or AC, but a lot of people complained about all the 12-volt garbage that was on the market at the time. I remember starting some sort of a partnership with Truck Fridge. This goes way back, but I don't know whatever happened to it. We never did anything official with them, but I know at one point we were talking to them about it.
Yeah, I don't remember what the connection is, but I do remember that I just pulled out the factory fridge, unplugged it, and plugged in the truck fridge to the same connection.
Yeah.
It's been great. So
Good.
I thank him for that recommendation. It has served me well.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Florida. Matt, good morning. God, I got lots of book recommendations coming up today. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, and I can just second Tom's recommendation there. I read that one years ago. I don't know when it came out, but maybe I'm mistaking it with some other. I've read several books kind of about buffalo bison.
Yeah.
And I do remember that one because, up in Alaska, he went on a buffalo hunt. But I think he talks a lot about the history of the big herds in the Midwest or or at least in the Eastern Rockies anyway.
Yeah.
And when they slaughtered them all, the
Right.
piles of bones
Yeah.
that they lined up alongside the railroad tracks, because they were going to use all the bones for, it was phosphorus or something with, fertilizer. And but I
Yeah.
mean, it was hundreds of feet long and 40 feet tall and however wide of just buffalo bones.
I've seen those pictures. That it was when I was a kid, and honestly, I didn't think they were real. All the dead and I thought,
Yeah.
how did they kill that many? I believe all of their rifles would have been single shot, right?
Yep. Well, actually,
Flintlock. I mean,
depending on when. I mean, most of them
were they black powder?
they probably no, like your 45 70s and all that would have been out in the late 1800s.
Okay.
So I think that was probably your most popular.
But it would be a
center
lot
fire
of
rifle.
work, and it would take a lot of time
Yep.
to kill that many animals. That was my thought. And why? Well, really, I've heard, well, it was sport. Well, that's not any sport after about the third one. It's not any
Yeah,
sport
so
on the
it was
first
for the
one.
hides
Yeah, there.
back then. But the main reason was it was the Indians' food source, and if they eliminate the buffalo, they can eliminate the Indian.
That I could believe.
Over the
That
rest of the country.
That I could believe. Yep. There you go.
That was
follow the money.
Yeah.
Um,
So, and like I say, I don't know if it's that book,
now,
but so just on that lines of how they did it.
Yeah.
The real experienced guys, they would look for like the oldest cow buffalo.
Okay.
Because she was usually like the leader of the pack. So if they basically the herd would follow her.
Okay.
So if they dropped her first, everybody else would just stand there and watch her.
Oh, great.
All the other buffalo.
Oh.
They wouldn't run. So then they could just keep shooting and shooting and shooting. And but the herds were just that big too.
Well, and we also have to remember that we kind of think, well, that must be a really dumb animal, but that's not true. That animal for hundreds of thousands of years never had that experience of something could just come out of nowhere and kill me.
No.
They didn't know how to react to a human being with a gun because they had never experienced. It's not in their DNA. They have no reference point to know what's happening at that point. So, I mean, you could see how it happened. And then over time, animals became very wary of humans because we could kill them very easily. So that's a change. You said something earlier, though, that I had never thought about. But if you would have asked me if there were any bison in Alaska, my answer probably would have been no. But I don't know why I would think that. I guess because I've never seen a picture of a bison in Alaska. I always think of them just being out on the prairie.
From Alaska down into Mexico, I don't remember the full range, but it's all of North America basically they covered at one point.
Yeah, I remember reading when bison meat was first becoming available, which is really in my lifetime. I mean, I can remember a time where eating a buffalo. Nobody would have talked about that. When it came out, I remember kind of researching it, and at the time they made it sound like there could even be a big shift away from cattle into bison. According to them at the time, they were so much easier to take care of. Their tolerance for extreme temperatures, like you just talked about, they could live fine in Alaska or Mexico. They didn't have a lot of the diseases and problems we were having with cattle, but we never really saw that big shift. I mean, it isn't all that much more popular now than it was 20 years ago when they first started bringing the meat out.
And they grow a little faster. So the buffalo ranches now, I mean, it's a 12-month process.
Yeah.
Whereas cattle are still closer to 16, 18 months depending
Okay.
upon the breeds.
Yeah.
And they're way more efficient too.
Are
A
they?
buffalo eats a lot less than any Angus or
Oh, really?
a lot of cattle.
Okay.
Yeah, on the temperature side, they have an extra flap in their, I don't know if it's the esophagus or somewhere, that can actually help them in the extreme cold weather to breathe.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. We never seem to get that big shift, though. I don't know why.
Yep. And then their whole head and their neck, which they really don't have a neck, it's their shoulder and head.
Yeah, right.
That acts as a shovel. They can use their head to plow through feet of snow to
Yeah.
find grass.
Yeah, I've seen that in
Whereas a cow would starve.
Yeah, there's some good documentaries in Yellowstone showing that kind of stuff, how the bison survive those just crazy extreme temperatures with feet of snow.
Yep. Yeah, very, very interesting stuff. Yeah, that's a educational book, I guess, is the way I would
Yeah,
word
good,
it.
good. All right.
So, I got a comment on your open there when you were talking about authority, MC number versus US DOT number.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be completed. I don't remember the year because it's been so long. It was an even numbered year, so it was either 14, 16, or 18.
Oh boy.
That we weren't going to have an MC number anymore.
This is kind of my point. And then I look at this new registration process. Here's the other thing it seems to me like, and all government, but really the FMCSA. The more I know about that organization, the more of a mess they seem to be. I'm not sure that they've ever done much good at anything, honestly. The more I look at their history, the more ridiculous it is. And then we find out the inspection program is a total failure, complete failure, and nobody even knew it all this time. Now they want to revamp that. They're always revamping programs, but there never seem to be any effective programs in place.
Yeah. And then you mentioned also about how possibly if things were more regulated, we wouldn't have the wide swings in, rates and financial stuff.
Right.
What just happened in the last 4 years and who caused that big financial swing and market swing? And
you're right. Yeah. And that's artificial.
The government, the government made it artificially big, and which is causing the big downfall. So.
And it's also what is screwing us all up because it is artificial.
Yeah.
The people who understand markets, free markets, know what to expect. Now, we can't predict everything perfectly, but we've been pretty good at knowing when there's upturns and downturns and what's coming. And what has everybody been saying for years now, even the best analyst, even Noel Perry, who only does transportation. The last couple of years has just been, look, guys, we don't know. We don't even know what we're looking at anymore. We don't know how to determine where we're going because things have happened that shouldn't happen in a free market and haven't happened before. And that seems to be what we've been hearing for years now about the economy is we don't know what's happening.
Yeah. And, I say when the government throws many trillions of dollars just into the open market with no real foresight of. Now, I agree they needed to do something during COVID.
Well, wait a minute. Wait. We could solve this easily. Remember why. This was simple. There was something the government could have done much better. That something would be nothing. Do nothing.
When they shut the economy down, they needed to do something. Well, if they would have never done anything, it would have been the best.
Yes. Don't give everybody a bunch of money. Don't lock us in our homes. Don't make us shut our businesses down. Don't fire people for not getting vaccinated. Don't shut down the northern border if you're not vaccinated. We could go through all the things. Had they just done nothing, we would have been much better off.
Yep. So, the government.
And here's the thing. I always look back at this and think our forefathers were absolutely brilliant. The system is so good. The free market system that they put in place in the United States was so good, and then we managed to totally screw it up. And it was a very simple system with a lot of freedoms. What has changed over the years? The freedoms. That's what's changed.
Yep.
And the government was designed in a way to be inefficient, because the government was designed to do only a very small amount of stuff, like protect the country from foreign invaders, protect property rights, those kinds of things. That's all the government should have been doing. And it was designed really well to do that efficiently and fair. The problem came in when we started asking, I'm going to blame it on the people because we are the government. We started asking the government to solve all kinds of problems. And they are not good at that. The system is not designed for them to be doing these kinds of things. We have 3 branches for a reason. They should all be fighting amongst each other. That's kind of the point of it. But the problem is not in the way we designed the government. It's what we keep asking the government to do that it wasn't designed for.
Yeah, there's this thing called personal responsibility. If you take care of yourself and your own problems first,
correct,
there aren't that many problems left for the higher ups to take care of.
And look, I understand why it was tempting and why it happened. You look at the fact that, well, look, if all of us, and that's what the government is, right? It's just all of us. If all of us just give an extra $1 right now, think of all the good we could do with all of that money. So, but it was never voluntary. It was, well, we're going to tax you to get that money, but look at all the good we can do with it. It's tempting, right? I mean, if I need water and the river's a half mile away, the odds of me being able to get that water from the river to my land is pretty slim. But what if there's 30 of us? And we could all get together and bring that water in, and we'll all benefit. That's the idea, and it sounds good, and it's tempting. But we see what happens. The government gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more we ask of it, and the bigger it gets, the more control it has, and that's where we are now. Nobody likes the control the government has, but we gave it to them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, both sides of the aisle, all they're doing is asking for the government to fix the problem too.
That's it. I mean, that seems to be our default now.
Very few people are actually saying, we need to undo a bunch of stuff to get back to where we were.
No, every time a problem comes up, our knee-jerk reaction is the government needs to fix this.
Yep. So, anyway, my book recommendation just came out 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Millionaire Mission by Brian Preston. And this is the host of the Money Guy show, podcast, YouTube channel that I listen to.
Yeah.
And for you, I don't know that it matters because of your age and where you're at. And for you to learn all of their little systems is going to take a lot of time for you to start giving advice on this.
Okay.
One thing that I kind of like about this guy versus Dave Ramsey, he's not anti-debt like Dave Ramsey is, but he's extremely cautionary on debt.
Okay.
So, for example, he just turned 50. He's a multimillionaire, runs a wealth management company and tax service, all that.
Okay.
In Tennessee. But even in his book and on his podcast, he keeps saying, at some point he's going to pay off his mortgage, but he just can't bring himself to do it because his mortgage is 2.6%. I mean, ridiculously low. And he's earning 5%, in a money market. So
I'm in the same boat.
the risk is worth the spread.
I know. I'm in the same boat.
Even though debt-free is a better thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep talking about this.
So-
When we expanded the house, so I never had a mortgage on the original house. When we expanded it, we could have paid cash for everything, but I looked at the rate back then, and it was when we caught the very bottom of the market. We're under 3. I forget exactly what ours is, but it's under 3. And I thought, while it's this low, I'm going to grab some of this money because I can. I have the project. I can now borrow that money, and I'm going to. And at some point, if I need to, I'll just pay it off. But I keep looking at the same thing. Why would I ever pay this off? I'm kind of torn. It'd be nice to say, well, look, I'm just completely debt free. But it doesn't make sense to do it. It just doesn't make financial sense to do it. And I know Dave Ramsey's arguments, and I can't argue against him. You really can't.
Nope.
I know people try to, but in reality, he has the right approach to teach people how to manage their money. Once you learn all of his stuff, the way I see it, and his stuff really is about the best out there. Now, there are probably guys like this that we just don't know of that are teaching really good stuff too. Not only does Dave Ramsey have good material, he's got the biggest reach. I mean, he reaches way more people than anybody else that does this. And I believe the way he teaches it is the best way to teach the masses. It minimizes all the risk as much as possible. And if you're disciplined, the system just works. You can't argue against his system. It works. Then what I think is as you learn it.
You just hit the key word.
As you learn it, and you can then make those kind of decisions. And in reality, I'm sure if you and Dave and I were sitting in a room alone, he'd probably agree with all this. But he's not going to say that, and he shouldn't. Because then everybody takes it as, oh, no, Dave Ramsey says I could just go borrow $1 million if I want. No, that's not what he's saying. So I know he takes a lot of heat, but I think, and it's why he's as big as he is. He really does put out really, really good information. And after you learn his stuff, then if you want to take some more risk, go ahead. If you want to use credit cards to get your points, you can make a huge argument for doing that.
No. So this Brian Preston, he's got all kinds of little sayings. And because I've talked about his car buying rules and all that.
Right.
I think on this show, but I know I've talked about it in coaching and on the CMC side.
Yeah.
But so credit card use is okay. Credit card debt, no way.
Good point. Good point. So,
and then he says, using a credit card is a tool.
Right.
Just like a chainsaw.
Yep.
A chainsaw is a very useful tool, but it is extremely dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, there's lots of good analogies like that. Fire. Man, what would we do without fire? But how much destruction does fire cause? Same thing.
Yeah,
so
you mentioned discipline earlier.
Right.
And even Dave Ramsey has said this straight out because people call and argue with him about the math.
Right.
And the math says you are better off if you invest and pay low interest debt.
Yes.
Well, the problem is most people aren't disciplined enough to stick to a plan and keep investing and not overspending. So that's why Dave's program actually has better results for the masses.
Correct.
Because the masses are not disciplined.
Well, one of the patterns you can watch that highlights this over and over and over again. People get in credit card debt, car loan debt, personal loans, and what do they do with it when it becomes overwhelming? They consolidate it into a home equity loan or a new line of credit. And then what do? They go out and run up the bills on their credit card again. And then they go borrow another $30,000 to buy another car. That is a clear pattern. You misused credit once. You can't get your credit card debt down because you're not disciplined enough. So you think borrowing more money is going to make the situation better because this time you're going to be disciplined. I'm sure that's what everybody tells themselves. Well, I got to get out from under all this pressure. It's just too much. Let me just get it all into a home equity loan, one payment, and then I'll be more disciplined. What kind of sense does that make?
Well, yeah, and that's where Dave Ramsey says, well, you finance a vacation, and then you roll it into a home equity loan, and you pay interest on a vacation for a 5 or 7 day vacation. You're gonna pay interest on it for 30 years.
People pay interest on dinner for 30 years because of stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he'll say that too. That was a very expensive meal.
That's right. You're going to be paying for it. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Even the Apple Pay, I think, or a lot of these have, the split payment type thing.
Right.
Where you make 4 payments on something you buy.
Yeah.
But they're even doing this on meals, on food.
Unbelievable.
You can go out to dinner some night and make payments on it for the next month. Just,
I know. Crazy.
Yeah. So.
All right.
So it's for people that want to learn more about the financial stuff.
I think it's. I'm going to read it.
Resource.
And it almost sounds like it is more in alignment with what I try to teach. And I do try to tell people, go listen to Dave Ramsey first. Go get really, understand his processes first, and then I'll help you from there. But I think his process is as good as it's going to get. When it comes to personal money management, we don't need to change it or make it any better. He's got it pretty well covered. Follow his rules. Be disciplined about it. You can't go wrong. Now, could you add to it? Could you take a little more risk and even do better? Maybe you could, but that's the point of risk. Maybe you won't either. You might take too much risk and lose money over it.
Well, yeah. So Dave Ramsey has the 7 baby steps.
Right.
That's his program. The Money Guy show, they have their financial order of operation is 9 steps.
Okay.
So all of Dave Ramsey's steps are inside of.
I figured they would be.
The Money Guy.
Right.
But he's got a couple more, and they're in a little bit different order.
Okay.
But it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
There's really no difference. And they're neighbors, they're friends.
Right.
They've been on the Dave Ramsey show. A couple of Dave's guys have been on his show. It's
good.
Good. They always.
Yeah.
They don't say anything negative about Ramsey, other than, some of his, just pull all this money out when you hit retirement and pay off your house. And they say, no, tax-wise, that's not the best option.
There are some.
You don't want to pull all your money out in 1 year, yeah.
Right. Because, that is one area where I actually found Dave to be fairly weak, tax law. And it's gotten him into a little bit of trouble. Nothing major. Like I said, my God, the guy's helped more people with money than anybody else ever going to for a long time, I think. But if anything gets him in trouble, and I haven't listened for a lot of years, but when I used to listen, I used to think, oh, Dave, you got that one wrong. And it's almost always about taxes.
Yep.
All right, Matt. Good.
I think I'm losing you.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Good stuff. Thanks for the call and the book. Holy cow, do we have calls today? Let's go to Texas. Tony, good morning.
Good eye, Mike. What final drive ratio do I want?
Yes.
Okay, 0.26. Next, thank you. I actually have a book along the nutrition line. If you want to, anybody that wants to lose weight or just get off of a diet, the book is called The Diet Detox by Samantha Heller. So there's that.
That one sounds somewhat familiar. But here's the thing.
It sounds familiar?
I think it does, and so does her name.
Yep. She was on the trucking Sirius XM. She's the nutritionist on Doctor Radio, Sirius XM. So she's been in trucking.
So
that might be it.
Here's kind of the problem. We've bastardized this word, and I get what she's doing, and I'll read the book because I haven't read this one, and I'll read it. But here's the thing: at least 90% of diets end in failure. No, 100%.
That's what she's saying.
I know,
And
but let's be real.
I haven't read it actually, but I heard about it, and it seems pretty good.
I'm probably going in a totally different direction than you're thinking. I'll one-up her on this. 100% of diets fail. We die.
Right.
We die. I guess that's a failure of our diet. Yeah. We died. Everybody has a diet. We have bastardized the word to mean weight loss. It doesn't mean weight loss. Diet, the definition of diet is what you eat. Whatever you eat, that is your diet. That's the definition of the word. But we've now made it mean weight loss. But that should be referred to as a weight loss diet.
Right. Okay. So 0.26 on the gear ratio. What's a good interest rate? A good interest rate for a used truck now? And don't say yes.
Okay, I'm gonna have to say I don't know. I really haven't looked at.
Okay, so 10. Good. Thank you.
Okay, 10.
10. All right.
Honestly, I would, if I had to pay 10% to borrow a truck today, it's probably not out of the question. That's probably about where we are for most people.
Well, you told me to pay $180 for a used Volvo and $90 for a new Peterbilt, so I think I should. But honestly, run through the gears on that 12-speed. What are the ratios in those gears? I know the final shouldn't be 1. Help me out here. You're killing me, Small.
Well, the reason I said yes was because there's no answer to the question the way you asked me. I need all the other details. You just said it shouldn't be 1. Well, wait a minute.
No, that's not important. Not important. I need a number.
No, see, you just said it. Well, it can't be 1. No, for me, for a long time, final drive was 1. And I talked about that. I didn't need overdrives. I knew my truck was going to run 63 miles an hour all the time, or 57 when I drove it, 63 with drivers. So a setup with a final drive as direct worked for me. I didn't need anything else.
So 1 is the direct.
1 is direct.
And the overdrive is going to be something like 0.76,
Point something, right? Now, all the gears up until you get to direct are all positive whole. How do I say this? They're all more than 1.
Right.
That's what I meant to say. They're all more than 1. So they might be 3 point something, 2 point something, 1 point something. Then we get down to 1, which is direct. Then anything smaller than 1 is an overdrive.
Well, I'm going to need some help because I have a credit offer coming back.
But here, let me
simplify.
I do want to
know
something.
A good interest rate.
Let me
I know the
lower
the better on this. We have a 2.47 drive axle. So I know that like 0.76 is okay, but it could probably take a 0.65.
Right. It could. You'd have a very fast truck.
Okay. So it's that 2.47 that is the main number. What else do you want?
Well, no, stop, because we've been fighting against that. I don't want people to think that that's the main number. It is just a number in the calculation. If I ask you to add up 7 plus 6 plus 8 plus 9, what's the most important number of those 4? There isn't one.
Don't ask me what speed you like to run. I am going to get.
With all 4 of those numbers,
I might have to ask for your address.
You have to have all 4 for the calculation. This is the same thing. We have to have all the numbers. We have to have the final ratio of the transmission or multiple gears. We have to have the rear end ratio. We have to have the tire size because the tire becomes a gear in this too. So you can't say that 2.47 is the important number. Every number in the calculation has to be there.
Sounds a little like Dave Ramsey telling me to pay the lowest amount of credit rather than the lowest interest rate off, which
good
I would never
analogy.
do. That's just me.
Good analogy. You're right. But the reason Dave does that, and the reason I sometimes give advice that doesn't seem mathematically sound, is because math is numbers and it doesn't change. But human beings
All right,
are
I get
human
his
beings and they
ideology, but
have
I don't get
emotions.
yours.
Well, the reason Dave does what he does, even though he knows it's not mathematically the best way, and he'll admit it, is because you have to take into account human emotions and human decisions. And when you work with people long enough, you know they're going to make bad decisions most of the time.
And so that's why you ask, what's your favorite speed?
Yes. Well, that's one of the reasons.
Ah, okay. At least you admit it.
Yes.
All right. I know lower is better on that as well.
No, wait.
I've been going 60,
I answered
and my
you
tires
incorrectly.
are 22 low pros.
That is not
22
right.
double wide.
I don't ask about final speed because of emotion. That's just part of the math. The math is the math. And that final speed is just part of that. In order to calculate the rest of the stuff, speed is one of the numbers in the calculation. I have to have it. If you ask me to spec a truck and I assume you're just going to drive 63 because that's a good speed, and you're going to drive 73, I've totally screwed up the whole truck.
I don't think anybody knows how fast or slow that they want to go.
Well, how could you not
variable,
know?
But
Of course, it's very
I'm trying to
Tony,
get some answers here.
The fact that it is variable is exactly why when you hear Joel or Henry or myself or Alec talk about this, we now can build a truck that can run in 3 different gears at highway speeds. That's why we were so excited about that, because we understand trucking can be variable. And if you can build a truck that can run at 3 different gears, you probably should. But had I still had my contract at FedEx, I would not be building those trucks. I don't need to. My speed was not
I would,
variable.
except I don't have the money for it.
In my operation at FedEx, whether my truck was going out and back on a 400-mile day run or whether it was going Orlando to California didn't matter to me. Speed was set the same way either way. There was no variation for me. I'm not going to let my drivers go 75 because they got a late start. No, 63, that's our speed. That's what you're running. Now I can spec the truck to run 63, and that's all I need to do. But we've heard from Joel and Henry and lots of other people that have now said, hey, wait a minute, look, if you're just out in the market running general freight, I will look at, and they'll all say this, they all talk about going slow on fuel mileage. Show me the right load, and I need to run 70 to make it. I'll do it. If the rate pays for it, it's the right load, I'll do it, and now I can. Now I have the flexibility in a truck that can do that. Even if I run 57 all the time, if I need to run 75, I can.
Right, but just so we don't confuse people, slower is still going to get you better fuel economy.
Always, always, always.
No matter what, right?
Correct.
Yeah, this is probably for tomorrow, but they are telling me to only use 20 psi of boost in the low gears. No fast
Who's
start.
telling you?
I cannot get on some interstate.
Who's telling you?
And I can't get out of people's way if I do that.
Well, who's telling you?
Joel.
This?
The Friday Joel people. Like you don't want to be starting out at a stoplight with the floor on the accelerator.
But did Joel give you a boost number? Because I do not remember Joel ever saying anything about no more than 20 pounds of boost.
Well, the idea is you don't want to wear out parts in those low gears.
That's what I'm trying to get to. I agree with the idea.
Hammering on it.
I always have. I believe in progressive shifting. I believe you should learn how to progressive shift. I believe you should be very, very easy on the throttle and on the brake. But when you said a specific boost number from Joel or the Friday crew, I don't believe we have ever said a specific boost number on that show. In fact, I was about to tell you, the Friday show has made my life more difficult because boost is not the best. We shouldn't even be looking at boost in some of the new trucks. Things have changed. If we go back to pre-emission, yeah, absolutely, boost is a number that's consistent. We know it. It's correlated with fuel use. All that is true of certain trucks. The new modern trucks, that boost number is no longer a good indicator of much of anything.
Well, 20 PSI for me, the idea is I only go up to like 32 or 33 in the pack car. So that's what I was taking to mean, go easy.
Well,
but I can't get through an intersection sometimes. So what you're saying is, yeah, in those cases, by all means, wear out parts and avoid a wreck. Get out of the way, and then you ease up on it.
I would imagine. But again, boost is not consistent the way it used to be anymore. We have engines with variable geometry turbos. The boost could change in a millisecond, and you did nothing. The vane angle changes. That's what a variable geometry turbo is. So I did nothing with my foot, but some parameter caused the variable geometry turbo to adjust. My boost will change instantly. So we can't use boost on a VGT. The turbo compounding changes things, so boost is no longer. But the concept of easing through the gears is still a legitimate concept, and we should practice it. We just have to know how, and boost is not a good number to try to use.
Getting ready to try and go into one of those VGTs as we speak, even though that you're going to have to take my address if I get rid of this pack car. For anybody that's starting out in the trucking industry with their authority, I would take down this number 941-916-0401, and because I'm getting ready to do a lose-lose by giving the dealer this pack car where somebody could get a really good truck and help me out and themselves as well. So there's that. But yeah, it's time to
Tony,
save some fuel economy. But
call tomorrow. It'll be more fun to argue this with everybody.
I know, but I may not be able to. But
of course
yeah,
you can.
I'll be looking for it.
Make it a priority.
And I'll talk to you later. Thanks,
right.
Kevin. Yeah.
Talk to you tomorrow. All right. Let's go to Illinois. Jerry, good morning.
Hi, Kevin. I just got a book recommendation real quick, and I only currently have 1600. Yeah.
Real quick, I need to.
Hello.
I need to just run over into the corner and activate my wind chimes.
Okay, you do that, and I'll put you down with a nuke. Oh my God, that's awful. Why she doesn't get that, I swear I don't know. And maybe it's just me. I'm so hard of hearing, and those tones of those in the background just drive me nuts.
I can tell.
Anyway, yeah, I'm sure you can. So I don't know how you put up with some of it, but anyway, I've only
hey Jerry,
I've only got 1,650. Go ahead.
You want me to give you the secret on how I put up with it all?
Mute.
I get paid very well.
Oh, that sure is a pre-show. Damn it.
That was for my haters.
I got it. I currently have 1,615 books on my Audible account, so I could probably take the rest of the show and give you book recommendations. However, I have one that I recently listened to. It just came out. Sometimes it's just nice to hear a book just as a novel and not have to learn anything from it.
I love novels.
Just a novel.
I love novels. Yeah.
There's a famous author that's got a lot of books out that just recently published one that was very, very, very different than any of his other books. The author's name is David Baldacci.
I've read a lot of his
very
stuff.
Famous author. And
I've read a lot of his stuff. I like him a
just
lot.
He just wrote one called Calamity of Souls. It's based in 1968. It has to do with a black man that was accused of murdering two prominent, wealthy white people, and the white lawyer in the town that defended him. Excellent book if you like that. It's kind of in the same vein as kind of sort of To Kill a Mockingbird, if you remember that famous book.
I do. It almost sounds a lot like a Grisham book. Grisham's written a lot of books like this.
It is, but it has a lot of the emphasis on the racism that was prominent then. Yeah, I know, and John Grisham had a few of them in his early days. I realize that, and it does. It did. If you didn't know the author's name, you would have thought it was a John Grisham novel.
It sounds like,
but it is written by David Baldacci. It's just an excellent novel. I thought very, very powerful novel, and a good message in it, and just a really nice book to read. So
hey, Jerry,
that's my recommendation. I could probably take the rest of the show, but I won't.
Just so you know, I get more like excited about novels than I mean, I read the other books because I kind of have to. It's what I do. And I do enjoy reading. So it makes that part of it a lot easier for me. But I don't look forward to reading the next health book. I don't look forward to reading the next financial book. I'll read them and you know, I do it all the time. But I get excited about a good novel. When I really like an author and they bring out a new book, and those are the kind of books I get excited about.
Well, I do too, and that's why I have so many on my Audible account again.
Obviously,
Kevin.
That's right. yeah, that's awesome.
Yep, that's the only one. I mean, I could recommend about 100 more, but I think you got other calls, and you better move on. So.
Jerry, do that. Make it a weekly thing. Give me one book a week.
There you go. Well, the trouble is there's so many of them that aren't one book. They're one series. I could give you the series. It's like there's one by Jeffrey Archer wrote a series called The Clifton Chronicles, and you cannot read just one book. They're not a standalone. Every book in that whole series ends up in a cliffhanger, and you absolutely positively have to buy the next book and download it immediately because you got to know how the cliffhanger ends.
Well, now you just hit on something else. When the whole book series thing first started, and I don't really know when it happened. You would think I would know it because I buy books all the time. I've been buying books my whole life. There never used to be anything as a book series. I mean, they just didn't exist. Now almost everybody writes in series. At first, it was kind of annoying. Now I really like it. And here's why. It's a financial thing is what it is. That's all this is. It's financial. So I'll give you a good example. This is either my number one or number two book. I can't really decide between The Stand by Stephen King or Atlas Shrugged as my number one book. I really like them both a lot. When The Stand first came out, and Stephen King was not all that popular yet, I was still in high school. I read The Stand. It was like 400 and some pages. Absolutely, at the time, my favorite book. Nothing else was even close. Several years later, now I'm a young, new owner-operator running local. Long days, though. 14, 16-hour days were pretty common for me, so I wasn't doing as much reading as I would have liked. But Stephen King released the original manuscript of The Stand. It was almost 1,200 pages originally. There was no way they would ever print a 1,200-page book for an author that was that new. It's just not going to happen. So, but when he was able to, he released the full version. I took 2 days off work, a Thursday and a Friday, and I read the entire book over the weekend. The longer the book for me, the better. If it's a good book, I don't want it to end. That's why I kind of like the series. They're allowing people to, in essence, write really big, long stories, and it still works out financially. So I like series.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of good ones. I know I've mentioned several of them over the years to you. I know that another one that's really, really good and I enjoy is actually it. And if you read one of his books, quote unquote, his books, you'd never understand who the author was. And it's an author named Robert Galbraith. And they're a very powerful series about a detective in England. But my point is that the author, it's a pen name for J.K. Rowling.
Ah, okay.
But they are a whole different genre. I mean, it is a whole different type of book. And I think because they were so different and maybe a little vulgar in a certain aspect, if you're squeamish about that kind of stuff and a lot of death and that kind of thing, that maybe she had to write under a pen name in order to separate herself from the other series.
Do you know why she used her initials, J.K. Rowling, in the beginning and not her name?
No, I don't.
It's common with authors, but they'll almost always be females. And they do it so you don't know they're a female.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be darned. I didn't realize that, I guess.
There is actually statistics that show male authors sell significant. I don't know if that's changed over time. This goes way back. But there was a statistic that male authors sold so much better, so a lot of female authors would use their initials, and then you wouldn't think about it.
Interesting. Yeah. Didn't realize that, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll buy them and read them. I'll buy them and listen to them, no matter what. I don't care. But
me too.
And I could write a whole dissertation on the quality of some of the narrators too. I'll tell you, some of them are absolutely awful. I have no idea how in the world they ever got hired to do the narration of a book. Some of they're just awful, and I don't not get a book because of a female narrator, but a lot of the female narrators are horrible because they think if somebody's talking soft, they've got to whisper, and for me being hard of hearing, it's just annoying to have to try to turn the radio up, and then they talk loud again, and it's just annoying. Where a male author will talk in more of an even tone.
It's interesting that everything you say, I agree with. We've picked up on these same things. I would have described it the exact same way, and I will be critical of females in this role because overall, I have not been very happy with most female narrators. There are a couple that are pretty good. And one of the things they do that I wish they wouldn't do, don't try to change your voice for every character. That annoys the hell out of me. I get it. I know they're trying to distinguish between the characters. And then a lot of females will try to do a male voice, so they'll try to deepen their own voice. It doesn't sound good. And it would be just as bad if a male tried to do a high female voice. And I've seen a couple male narrators try to do it, and I'll turn them off immediately. Just if you've got a good voice, and hopefully you do, and you've got good cadence and all those other things, just read me the book. Don't try to turn it into a movie with 17 different characters.
Yep. It kind of reminds me of the old years and years ago. We had the old community theaters, and you have a female actress playing a male part, and it was, to me, it was cartoonish.
It's awful.
It's just the female narrator makes her voice be a male, and it just sounds cartoonish.
It does. It's awful. Yeah, it adds. It's so distracting, and you, like you said, or they'll whisper. And now I can't, especially because we're listening in noisy trucks. That there is a difference. If you're sitting in a nice, quiet room with headphones on, you understand some of the nuance. My God, when we're going down the road in the truck, all you're trying to do is hear the word.
Exactly. Yep. So, well, we could talk a while more about it. I can pull out my list and continue through the series, but that's enough for now, Kevin. I appreciate it. So,
thanks for the call.
Read David Baldacci.
Yep, I'm going to. Like I said, I've read a lot of Baldacci's books over the years. He's written a lot of books. Great author. Let's go to West Virginia. Oh, let me try that again. There we go. Randy, it's your turn.
Howdy. Howdy.
What's on your mind today?
I didn't know this was going to turn into a book review day. But
I thought it might be
somebody
fun.
called you, I don't know if it's Monday, or I was listening to another older show and recommended Nuclear War.
Yes. That was Brandy.
So I got it on my Audible, and man, I am telling you what, it is one good read.
I agree. I already read it.
It's amazing. It just, I can't hardly put it down to listen to you.
I didn't put
And
it
it
down.
lasts about 11 hours on Audible.
I didn't put it down. I read it the other day from start to finish.
Well, did you really?
I did. Yeah, I couldn't
Man,
put it down.
Gosh, it's kind of scary, isn't it?
I was supposed to be reading a health book because I have the author coming up on the show. So I started off reading that, and I read that for about an hour, made a bunch of notes, and then thought, I'm going to take a break. Because when I read a book like that, like I'm going to interview the author, it's more like work. I read a little bit, I make some notes, I try to, get everything organized and in the right order, and it's more like work. So after an hour or so that I was pretty tired, I thought, but it's raining out, there's nothing else to do. Brandy recommended that book, and it sounded really interesting, so I started on it. I could not put it down. That is a, it's
amazing.
very, very well written. Like her writing, it was amazing in the way she laid out the story. And the topic is interesting. Now, I did say this, there's no good news in this book anywhere. None. This is not going to be the feel-good movie of the summer. There's nothing but a really, really scary message that could honestly come true. I mean, anybody with any reasonable logic has to say, I hope it's not likely. But the one general that they interviewed, the quote I thought was pretty interesting. He said, this could happen tomorrow. And then he corrected himself and said, hell, it could happen later today. And he's right.
You know what? I'm driving down the road thinking about that.
I know.
It could happen right now.
Now, here's the thing. I've talked many times on the show about being prepared for certain things, like an EMP or somebody hacking the grid, especially drivers. If I'm at home when something like this happens, I have all my resources around me. When you're on the road, you have almost nothing. And if you lose communication with home, that's a big deal.
It certainly is.
If you're away from home and you don't have cash and the banking system goes down, that's a big deal. Those are things I think everybody should prepare for. We're already seeing them happen. We've seen the banking system go down locally. We've seen water plants hacked, and that go down.
The telephone the other day.
Exactly.
Right? AT&T.
Right. We keep seeing more.
You know what
and
I
more.
did? I went out and got me another phone.
There you go.
With another carrier.
Yeah. So, but when you think about this book, if this happens, if this scenario happens, there's no preparing. You might as well.
Right. Yeah.
We're all in the same boat. Your preparations might give you a couple extra days or a couple extra weeks or maybe even a couple extra months if you're in the right part of the country. But ultimately, this event, which a lot of people would say, oh, that's never going to happen. No, it absolutely could happen. It would be
right now. It could happen.
The end of humanity as we know it. And when you read the book, you understand why it is more likely to happen the way she describes it. If one nuke flies, that outcome is pretty likely. And it's hard to explain because, like you said, the book is 11 hours. She goes through all the reasons why it would most likely happen just like this. And you look at it, you go, she's right. There's no way around this. If some nut job or whoever, if anybody lets loose with a nuke, the odds are the world will be changed forever.
You're right. And I want to thank Brandy for telling us about that book.
It's a great book.
It's really, 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 it scares you, but I've enjoyed it because it is so full of facts and stuff that it's just amazing.
It is.
It's like 27,000 people in the Pentagon. Would you imagine that?
No, I know it's a really
me neither.
Big
27,000.
Imagine that every day they all show up in the same parking lots. 27,000 people.
Wow.
and they all go into the
That's
same
crazy.
building. I know, it is crazy.
No wonder you can't
But-
get around D.C., right?
And when you think about this, and the book makes you think about this kind of stuff, one nuke on D.C., we're toast.
Oh, sure.
We're toast. Our country falls apart. Everything about our government and military is right there.
Yeah.
All the people who make decisions and run the country, as poorly as they run it, they're all right there. You wipe out 90% of the people making all the decisions with one bomb. Maybe
Right.
we should think about that.
There's a thing called a designated survivor, but I think that just happens when Congress is together. But maybe they ought to have one of them guys
Well,
in the middle of nowhere all the time.
we have those goofy, and we have to have them. Who's the president when the president dies? The vice president, speaker, pro tem
Well,
of
but
the,
when he's
the
at
Senate.
Arlington putting flowers on his grave, he's dead too.
Exactly. That's what I mean. We can have this whole progression, but what happens in these stories is somebody like Pete Buttigieg ends up being the president.
Oh, what a sad day that would be, huh?
But that's how it is. It goes down through the secretaries at some point. The Secretary of
Right.
Transportation.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And when you look at it, I used to think, oh my God, why do we need to know the 17th person who is in line for president? We need to know because it's very possible all 16 get wiped out in one event.
Hey, how about this? Robert Byrd was third in line to be the president of the United States, or fourth in line to be the president of the United States, and he couldn't even open a book. He's in a wheelchair, and his aide had to open the book for him, and had to write letters like a foot tall so he could read it.
Yeah.
And he was fourth in line.
Yeah. Well,
And he's from West Virginia, and he might have been home when it blew D.C. up. Wouldn't that have been a sight?
Isn't that kind of the shape that Biden's in right now?
Absolutely. And you know what? Every one of them cabinet members that don't do the 25th Amendment on him is about as sorry as they get.
Well,
none of them fit to be in office.
I agree.
They don't 25th Amendment him. They ain't a cow in Texas.
I don't know exactly what this was about, but I saw a bunch of posts this morning about a video. Is he over in France right now? Is this something current?
Yes, he is. Yeah,
Okay.
he's over there.
So this is becoming embarrassing around the world at this point. Did you see the video of what happened when he's over there with the French president?
No, sir, I didn't, but I can imagine.
I didn't have any sound on, but I kept seeing it because everybody's posting it. So he's standing there next to Jill, and I believe it's Macron standing next to him. And you see him kind of, do that weird thing where he kind of starts leaning forward a little bit, and you're not really sure what's going to happen next. And I think he actually puts his hands down on his knees, and he's like squatting there. And everybody's saying, did he just shit himself? Because after that, he does it twice. And then after that, Jill just walks him off stage. I don't think it's a stage, but she walks him out of the area, and nobody knows why he's leaving. So all I could see was all the speculation. Did he just shit himself? This is our president we're talking about.
And let me tell you something. Jill Biden ought to be arrested for elder abuse.
Yes,
absolutely.
She should.
If you did your parents the way they do her, they would arrest your ass.
Yeah, they would. I
yes,
know.
They would.
It's at this point, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican anymore. We should not allow this.
If you're
to
an
continue.
American, you should kick it. You should 25th Amendment him. That's all they are to it.
I agree.
No matter the piece of shit that we got that's going to take his place. It can't get any worse than him. Could you imagine him in this scenario in that book?
Oh.
Could you imagine him?
No. And that is what we have to be concerned about right now.
You got that right. He wouldn't even know that he had that card in his billfold, would he?
They probably don't let him have that card. Let's be real. I know it's the law.
Let me ask you something, Kevin. Who the hell are they? Because and this pisses me off. People say that Biden did this and Biden done that. Biden ain't done a damn thing.
Exactly.
He's too stupid to do anything. Somebody's pulling his strings. Who is it?
That's the $1 trillion question.
His age is. I was talking about Bird a minute ago. Listen, when Ted Kennedy died, him and Bird was asshole buddies. When Ted Kennedy died, Bird was sitting in a well of the Senate. An aide was sitting beside him, and he opened up his book, and I swear it was a foot thick. I mean, a foot tall. He opened up his book. One page says, O-H. That's all it said. So Bird goes, oh. His aide opens the next page. It says Ted in great big letters. Bird goes, Ted. And then the aide opens another page, and it says, oh. And Bird goes, oh. That's how. And he was a highest ranking member of Congress.
Well, right, which is bad. But now we're talking about the president
Yeah, you're right. And then he's in the same shape.
There's a new report out, and they were making a big deal about this yesterday. It was all over the news about the insiders saying when he's off camera, it's even worse. That we are seeing the best version of him. When we see him on camera, that's the best version. That things are much worse behind the scenes. That he is in meetings with note cards telling him to say very, very basic things. Not note cards because he's got some complicated world strategies he's working on. He needs note cards to remember the names of the people in the meeting.
How did we get in this situation?
Here's what I'm wondering. So we knew he had some issues 4 years ago, right? There were signs of this 4 years ago. They have gotten significantly worse in 4 years, and nobody should be surprised. I've watched every president in my lifetime aged 10 years in the 4 that they're president. You watch it. It is a horribly stressful job. It has to be. It wears people out. He started off in bad shape. At the end of 4 years, it is becoming ridiculous. Why in the world is he on the ballot? Let's try to drag him through the last couple of months of his presidency, but why is he on the ballot? There is no way this man can make it another 4 years. He shouldn't be allowed to govern for another 4 days.
You're exactly right.
But yet he's still on the ballot.
And he don't even know it.
He really doesn't.
Sometimes he thinks he's the vice president. And he thinks he's a senator.
Yeah, I know. It's bad. It's really bad.
I'll tell you one thing. If there's ever a time for somebody to attack us, it's right now.
That's the other thing that really scares you about that book. Because you start thinking about things like that. And if a nut job, here's something else I thought about at the end of the book. When you see what's happening in North Korea, and, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know about the book, don't listen to me because I'm going to talk about the book and it's going to give things away. Just go get it and listen to it. Spoiler alert. But this was a big, I had to stop and really think about this for a while. You think no nut job is ever going to launch the first nuke. I mean, there's only a handful of countries that could do it. We know who they all are. We know everybody that has a nuke. North Korea is the one I worry about the most. But I used to think, well, it doesn't make any sense. Why would these people launch a nuke? They know they're going to die. But when you look at what happened in North Korea, you might start to understand why a nut job like him might take the chance. Because think about North Korea now. They're a third world country. I mean, we have the satellite images, at night you see South Korea's lit up like a Christmas tree and North Korea is completely dark. They live a primitive lifestyle. The country does. But we don't have a lot of good intelligence on North Korea. Most of the time we have no idea where the nut job is. And do you realize North Korea, I learned this in this book, North Korea has the largest tactical tunnel system in the world. That was in the book. So we
I ain't
have.
got to that part yet.
Told you it's a spoiler alert.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. You can't spoil it because this book is so good that listen. I listen to a chapter. I go back and listen to it again.
I know. So we have, and they talk about all these places in the book. Raven Rock in Pennsylvania. It's a secure government site within a mountain, and that one's close to D.C. That's where the president goes first. Then we have the one in Colorado. What mountain? That's another mountain. That one is supposed to be the most safe. It's granite. It's way deep into the mountain. We have those places for our government. But North Korea has a bigger system like that, tunnels and secure locations under mountains, and they have a bigger system than anybody else in the world. Why would they do that? That's expensive. It's really only going to do you good in like an all-out nuclear war. But he might be sitting back saying, we might not be the richest country in the world by far. We might not have the biggest military, but we could drop some nukes here and then just go hide out. And he doesn't care about his country. He doesn't care how many people die in his right. He doesn't care how many people die in his country. He could just be sitting back and saying, look, I probably have the best chance of surviving this.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's scary.
I'll tell you one thing. That book really opened my eyes to a lot of things. It's amazing. 6
minutes.
And
that's the one that gets me.
Yeah.
The president has 6 minutes to decide what to do. And then this is the one that got me. I never thought about this. The whole concept of use them or lose them. This is the key. This is why this will go out of control so fast. The president has 6 minutes, and he's being told there's 1,000 nuclear warheads on their way from Russia. What his only choice is to let loose with all of ours.
Sure. I didn't realize that to bomb them, North Korea, we have to go over top of Russia.
I was just going to say that. That was that you see how this could escalate, even though nobody wants it to. The U.S. could be sitting back saying, oh, hell no, we don't want a nuclear war. Russia could be sitting back, no way, we know everybody will be wiped out. North Korea launches one or two, we launch against them, and Russia thinks we're launching at them because they're heading right for Russia, and they only have minutes to make a decision.
And China's right next door. We're going to kill 300 million of their people.
Yeah.
If we bomb North Korea, so they're going to be ticked.
It is.
Man, I mean, I appreciate Brandy telling me that, but I kind of wish I didn't know it.
I know.
I've really enjoyed that. I'm still enjoying it. But,
the book, like I said, was so well written, so interesting, so.
I'm telling you.
But at the end,
it certainly is. It certainly is.
Great book, but boy, the message sucks.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I've been able to call you for 3 days now to tell you about that. How about that? Really appreciate her doing that.
Yeah,
I mean that's great.
It was a good one. All right, Randy, thanks for the call. It has turned into a book day. I kind of like this. We haven't done this in a long time. Let's go to North Dakota. John, it's your turn.
Hi, Kevin.
What's on your mind
today?
I made
a book recommendation to you at NASDAQ in your camper that night. Wondering if you've gotten to it.
It's on my Kindle.
Yeah. Just wondering if you got to the peaks and valleys.
I haven't yet. I haven't.
Yeah. It's a good book and kind of turns off of Who Moved My Cheese, and it really made me think of your lessons when I was reading myself, so I just figured I'd ask you if you had gotten into it or not.
You know, I think I keep saying this, but every time somebody kind of reminds me about a book, I say, well, I'm going to move that one up to the front of my list. But then I look at my list and I think, yeah, but I really want to get to this one too. I'm thinking I should move this one up. And here's why. If this goes along with Who Moved My Cheese, honestly, that book could be one of my biggest recommendations right now. Who Moved My Cheese? And the reason I say that, it's simple, it's easy, even for people who don't like to listen to books, or it's really short, it's really, really easy listening. And I don't know of a more important lesson based on what's going on in the world right now to just, you've got to get comfortable with change. And that's what the book's all about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's reasonably, I'm trying to look at the link, but I can't find it right now. But it's probably only a 6-hour book, I think, on Audible. So it's not terribly long. So that would be, I was just checking on it. So.
Yeah. No, you know what I need to do? I used to keep my Kindle really organized. Like when I read a book, I would delete it off the Kindle. It's still in my digital library, but it just wouldn't physically be on the Kindle anymore. And then I started reading a lot of the free Kindle books. So and then I was reading a lot of series. Then I was taking a lot of book recommendations. So I was always and my whole Kindle just kind of got out of control. Now there are physically hundreds of books on my Kindle, and it's kind of a mess right now. I'm almost thinking it might be time for me to buy a new Kindle. I go through batteries on mine. My battery's not lasting long anymore,
Right.
and I'll bet mine's not. This one isn't even 2 years old yet, I don't think. But I'm on my 9th.
Right.
You always know because it keeps track of it for you on Amazon. I'm on my 9th Kindle, but I had the original way back when. I'm thinking I might just buy a new one, and just that would be the easiest way for me to clear up my Kindle because I keep looking at it. It takes forever for me to try to organize it now. So maybe it's time to just buy a new one and start over.
Yeah, well, I just figured I'd check these. You got to that book or not?
All right, keep bugging me.
Yep.
All right,
I will.
All right, thanks for the call. Yeah, I do. I really appreciate book recommendations, and I do try to get to them all, but sometimes it's hard. I'm getting some on social media now too, so I'm really going to have a big list. I think it is time for a new Kindle. I need to start over, and I'm only going to put the books on it that I haven't read yet, and then I could probably pretty easily prioritize them as well. Now I look at my Kindle, and I'm just overwhelmed. I can't find half the books that I know I bought, and I got to go searching for them, and it's just kind of a mess. Let's go to Illinois. I will tell you this is the last call on the board. If I finish this, we're going to wrap it up for the day. If you want to jump in, I'll hang out. Gerald, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Kevin.
Hey, it's you. What's on your mind today?
Well, I was going to call and talk about the taxes, but I have a book recommendation for you too.
Good.
It's called The Age of Eisenhower. It's by William I Hitchcock.
Really? The Age of Eisenhower. Okay. A novel
about America,
more historic?
America in the War of the 1950s, about his presidency and like how he dealt with the Cold War and Douglas and MacArthur.
Yeah.
And also it was interesting that he never left the White House. He stayed there.
Oh, okay. I know almost nothing about Eisenhower. That might be a good one
he
for
did
me.
the interstate system. I think it was from copy in Germany that had that.
It was
to get out of the cities quick if something happened. Yeah.
Germany after World War II built their highway system, the Autobahn, and you know, a lot of things we don't realize came out of Germany. For such a small country, And at the time that a lot of stuff came out of Germany, they were even smaller because they were a split country. I wonder how many kids today even know this. I mean, are they even teaching this anymore? Growing up, for me, there was East Germany and West Germany, and they were wildly different. It's not like Virginia and West Virginia.
Yeah, it was.
It's one was completely communist and one was capitalist or a democracy or something close to it anyway. That was a city split like that. I mean, that was kind of a crazy thing when you think about it now. Imagine a city like Miami being split with a physical barrier, and half the people in Miami were under a communist government and half were under a democratic government. Imagine how bizarre that would be. But that was what was going on in Germany. Now, I know that's a country, but Germany's about the size of most of our states. And it was the dividing line was right through cities, and it was and the people in the communist side were not allowed to leave. That's another crazy thing. No. But all the stuff that came out of Germany after World War II, all of the rocket science came out of Germany. Our whole space program was started by people who emigrated from Germany over to here, the scientists, after World War II. We modeled our highway system after theirs. And you're right, that was Eisenhower that did that. That was a major change to trucking, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy.
Yeah. My grandfather, I talk about this. My grandfather, his entire trucking career was over before the highway system was even built.
Yeah, the back roads, and those had been rough.
Like
the comforts of today, you know?
Well, I grew up in the 60s, and my father drove through that change. My father was an owner-operator before there were a lot of interstates, and then all the interstates were being built. But I remember going with him when I was really young, and it was all two-lane back road, and it was rough stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then you talk about Joe Biden. There was another president, Woodrow Wilson, that actually had a stroke when he was in office, and his wife actually took over the day-to-day operation for him. So I wonder if Jill Biden is doing the same thing.
Yeah, who knows? I don't think so. I think we are talking, and put on your tinfoil hat and start looking for black helicopters. But no, I do really believe there is a shadow government.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it's not Jill. I could see how
terrible.
that
And the world
could have
looking
happened
at us
in those times, but I don't believe that would ever be the case now. I think there's a whole mechanism behind him. Yeah. Yeah, it was a much simpler world when the president's wife could step in and take over some of the duties. That's not happening today.
No. But yeah, that's the book I wanted to recommend.
I appreciate it.
It's a good read.
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of them. I need to get busy. Let's, hey, I'm going to cut you loose. The calls are piling up again. Let's go to North Carolina. David, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Oh, I got a bone to pick with you.
All right.
So, I just, years ago, I called in. I was so excited. I was on my way to pick up that lease truck, and you talked me out of it. We got my debt under control. I attended the CMC. I now own a small fleet. Where do you get off, helping people like that? I mean, how dare you? I mean, the Kevin Rutherford SWAT team comes around and forces me to listen to your show. I mean,
David,
from what I've seen on X, you're like one of the worst people that's ever lived. Like, there's like Kevin Rutherford, then Pol Pot, then Hitler, then, it's,
David, I'm sure that for that kind of advice that took you from considering a lease purchase to being a successful small business owner, I'm positive I must have charged you an awful lot of money for that advice.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the bags of cash. The guy's breaking my legs every
Right.
week if I don't pay. I mean,
Right.
it amazes me some of these things that I see, and I'm like, who is he doing this stuff to? When did this happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do have some, for anybody out there that's considering getting their own authority. A few things that I've learned. One, in the name of all that is holy, that anyone has ever considered to be holy in the history of humanity, make sure you have some sort of app on your phone that blocks robocalls.
Oh.
Because
Can
as
we?
soon as your DOT, to this day, I'm 3 years into it, and I get no less than 30 calls a day that are blocked.
Can we?
And it's all these quote unquote dispatch services.
Can we talk about this? Why? Somebody, I try not to just criticize a policy because maybe there's something about it I don't understand. Why is it necessary to make that original filing information public knowledge? Do we really
Exactly.
need
It
that?
should be protected. I mean,
And I am asking it genuinely. If somebody is listening and says, "Oh no, it has to be because of this," give me a reason why it has to be made public knowledge. Because in my opinion, it should not be. That system is a mess.
oh yeah, it's been a mess. I mean, the learning curve has been pretty dramatic, but my phone almost caught fire. I mean,
Well, this is
incredible.
This is one more reason, and I can't believe I can't get anybody to actually engage me on this topic. Why do we, and I talked about it a little this morning, why do we still have this process we call authority? No other business that I'm aware of has to do this. Nobody else has to go to the government and ask for their permission or their authority to be in business. I know why it existed prior to 1980. I've explained it. I don't understand why we didn't eliminate that process back then. And if we had, here's another thing. I've started many, many businesses in my life. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody had access to say, "Oh, look, Kevin just started a software company. Let's try to sell him everything we think that's all this system has turned into. It's just a way for everybody to try to sell you a bunch of crap. Why do we allow this?
I don't know, but had I had any idea, I would have got a
burner
second
phone
line number, or some sort of burner phone or what. Yeah, because as soon as it was published, it was out of control there for about 5-6 months, and even to this day, I get just call after call after call, and
you shouldn't have to deal with that for 5 days. We shouldn't have to deal with it at all. And people say, "Oh, it's no big deal, just ignore it." No, you can't. We run our business on our phones. I don't need all these. I don't need to waste my time trying to block people or ignore that call or what voicemail is that. We shouldn't have to deal with that.
Yeah. But quick story about all the calls and all that. You'll probably enjoy this. I'm one of these guys, as soon as I wake up, that first 15 minutes, it's not a good idea to interrogate me or badger me.
Exactly.
Or I won't react well,
Yeah.
So I get 3 phone calls in a row, which tells me they called me 3 times rapidly to try to break through to make the phone ring.
Right.
And then they send me 5-6 text messages and a bunch of emails. And the 4th phone call I answered. And I just simply stated, "I hope this is an emergency."
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "Oh, I'd like to talk to you about whatever, and I told him, I go, "Have you ever had an 18-wheeler parked in your lobby? Where are you at?" The dude called the cops.
Yeah, it is a ridiculous. And some people go, "Oh, it's no big deal." It is a big deal, and we shouldn't allow it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not only that, but how could that possibly be a successful sales strategy? That's the other part that I can't wrap my head around.
Well, hold on. Have you ever heard me talk about James Lamb?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what he's kind of notorious for, or maybe you don't.
No, I don't. I'm not recalling. I recognize the name, but I don't remember the.
So James has started all, and I fully expect letters from his attorneys now. I've mentioned his name on the air. I'll get another letter from his attorney. They monitor the show. And this has been going on for decades with him. He really has no background in trucking. None. No experience, never really worked in trucking. He keeps starting all these associations. But here's what he originally started. He used to own a company called...
is that the guy that claimed that you promote everyone to be on drugs driving the truck?
Oh, yeah, he says that's what I'm doing, right? Right, that's him.
Right.
But here's his history.
I know who you're talking about now.
Here's his history. He started a company called DOTauthority.com. Then he started another company, GetYourAuthority.com. Then he started 2 more companies with something about authority.com. And one of the filings that you have to do as your authority process, which should go away, I want to keep saying that, we shouldn't have to go through this process. And because we do, this is what kind of crap occurs. So part of the filing, you can do it yourself. It's a 1-page report. You just file it with the government. Well, I'm okay with somebody offering a service to do that for you. As long as I know I have a choice, I could either file it myself or I could pay somebody else to do it. I'm okay with that. And that's what his company did. They got you your authority. They did all this stuff. So, but he created all kinds of forms and documents that looked exactly like DOT forms. And he made all of his marketing and his sales and all those phone calls you would get as soon as you applied for authority was from him. And he made it look like he was the official government process and charged people to do it. And it was flagrant enough.
I got letters like.
Yeah, it was flagrant enough that the federal government took him to court. He always likes to say, well, it wasn't court. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was just a penalty or a fine. They were just aggressive sales tactics. But the federal government, which is pretty incompetent and usually doesn't catch many people, had him enough that he paid almost $1 million fine. They claim he made over, I think it was over $4 or $5 million doing this.
Yeah, I would get letters in the mail. I still get them once in a while, and they want you to have they want to give you the impression it's either official or it's state police or the DOT or whatever.
A lot of companies will kind of push the line on that, but he shattered the line, blew right through it, and it was fraudulent, and he got caught. And from what I understand, he hasn't paid the fine yet.
Before we get a phone, I got 2 quick questions about trucks. One, Freightliner DD15, basic fleet truck, 2019. Got a pile of them at this point. Do you have any idea what the average DEF consumption should be per mile? I got trucks all over the place. I got some trucks that are like 70, 80 miles to the gallon, and like the truck that I drive, I'm getting a 172.
So we have averages,
there doesn't seem to be anything that.
I don't even.
What's the average? I guess
I don't really like to use averages. This is kind of one of those. Averages can be really powerful sometimes. Averages can be very misleading other times. And I talk about this with A1C.
Oh, okay.
Why it takes us 10 years to diagnose diabetes because we use averages, and it's a really bad way of doing it. I feel kind of the same way about this DEF. So there are 2 factors we have to look at. The one factor, which should stay pretty consistent, is your DEF consumption should be a fairly consistent percentage of your fuel consumption. So right off the bat, we know there's going to be a big variation because we know we have trucks like Joel and Henry and a bunch of others getting 10 plus miles to the gallon, and we have car haulers and heavy haulers getting 4 miles to the gallon. So the DEF consumption on those trucks are going to be wildly different. And if we take those 2 and average them, we get a number that looks right, but it's not accurate for anybody. Now, there's another factor.
All right, that makes sense.
That's one factor, and that one should be somewhat consistent. The other factor is not consistent at all, and it's the condition of your emission systems and how well you are burning the fuel itself. If we have a truck spec'd wrong, running in the wrong RPM range all day long, that's going to have an impact, a negative impact on DEF consumption. We're going to have to burn more DEF to try to clean up the dirty exhaust because we didn't burn the fuel completely. Now, another truck spec'd, again, I'm going to use Joel and Henry, spec'd to run in the optimal RPM almost all of the time, they're going to consume a lot less DEF. Now, if something goes wrong in the emission system, and it's even slightly compromised, truck might be running, we might not have any kind of derating going on, but the DEF system is not, or the whole emission system is not operating efficiently, then we're going to use more. So there's so many variables, and it's so all over the board that averages would actually be a bad idea. Averages might make us feel good when we shouldn't. So one of the things I just had the meeting about it last night. We are rolling out the beta version of our new fuel gauges app. It's going to be part of the AudioRoad app and fuel gauges. We're combining them to simplify things. But in the new fuel gauges app, not only will you now be able to track DEF in your truck with just one account. Right now, people have to create two different accounts, one for fuel, one for DEF. The new version, one account is all you need. And we are going to track DEF consumption by the mile and as a percentage of fuel use. And between those two numbers and knowing them, we'll also be able to troubleshoot maintenance issues a lot better.
Okay, yeah, that's why I was tracking it, because I noticed when my when the DEF consumption was just a mile per gallon, if it went really high or really low, it was usually about 3 to 5 days later. I got a light on a dash somewhere.
It is good information
for sensors or whatever.
We've never really had a good way of tracking it. And our app is the best way by far, and our new app is going to do it really well. Like I said, you're going to know a miles per gallon on DEF, and you're also going to know that you're using your DEF consumption is 6% of your fuel consumption. And now when somebody calls and we've got an emission problem, we could say, hey, let's talk about if you're tracking it, and that may help us troubleshoot a lot.
Oh, okay. All right. And the other question I have is, I'm getting pretty close to, I need to start looking at turning trucks. And a point that we'll probably disagree on, but I'm a big fan of having that Freightliner warranty, because it makes me sleep better at night.
Okay.
It's a comfort blanket. That's all it is. And I know it costs more than it should and all that, but it's just it lets me sleep better.
Okay.
That, somebody puts a piston through a block, I don't have to come up with, $50,000 to replace a motor.
If that were completely true, I might have a different opinion. But I've seen too many times over the years where they just don't stand behind the warranty. There's always a reason why they don't.
I got a really good shop. We got a real good relationship with Freightliner, and I haven't had any issues. So they actually do more than they should.
And that's good. And that is a factor for you personally. Some people wonder why I develop such strong opinions about something. And one of the things that they have to remember is that this is what I do 10 to 15 hours a week after week, year after year. I have the advantage of seeing thousands of more examples of things than most people ever see. We have our databases for fuel mileage and accounting. I have access to all those numbers. I know how much an owner-operator should be profiting. I know what their fuel cost should be. I have access to a lot of data and a lot of stories that most people don't. And because of that, I do have pretty strong opinions. And I'm going to just talk about, this is a place where I can use the averages. In my opinion, over the years, the averages have proven to me that I don't want to give them money for that warranty. But if it
Right,
helps
right,
you
yeah,
sleep
yeah.
better
No,
as an individual,
I agree.
and
Economically, it really doesn't make sense. It's just one of those. It makes me feel better.
And then you should do it. And you also said, I have a good shop. I have a good you are more likely to get your stuff covered under warranty then. So for you personally, it makes some sense. For the big picture, it doesn't. And that's what I have to remember. Now that you and I are talking and you can tell me those things, then I'd say, yeah, in your case, it does make more sense.
Yeah, I always try to get them to just take the steering wheel off of my older trucks and put it onto a new truck and call it a warranty job. But they always say something about felonies.
They won't go for that one, huh?
It's always something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try though. But I test drove. I took it for a week. A Mack Anthem, and I fell in love with that truck.
Good.
Pulls well. I tell you one thing: when you turn the wheel, you better be prepared to turn, because if you turn the wheel the same way you do it in Freightliner Cascadia, you're going in a circle.
Okay.
The steering, the M13, it's a little, because I'm in produce, so we're either 79,000 pounds or empty.
Right.
So, coming out of Idaho, through Wyoming and the passes and all that, it lags a little bit. But I was curious if you'd added, I know that powertrain is new for them, or fairly new. And I'm a little concerned about that, because I looked at that. I looked at the International S13, and I'm still in counseling over having to drive a Max Force back in the day.
Oh boy. Yeah, that'll give you PTSD.
Yeah, so I'm a little nervous. Because I remember that monstrosity.
But here's
like all the lights are flashing.
Here's the difference.
Just turn it off and turn it back on. You'll be fine.
Here's the difference. I don't know if you were listening back then. I clearly remember. Look, I went to find a truck with the first Max Force engine so I could see it for myself, because I was shocked at what I was reading. The original Max Force, I'm trying to remember this now. I think it had 3 different radiators. It had a high temperature radiator, a cold temperature, a low temperature radiator, or a low flow radiator. It had a bunch of radiators and a bunch of plumbing. And they were returning.
Yeah, there's pipes going everywhere.
Yeah, and they were returning way more exhaust gas. And I looked at it on day one and said, total garbage. Anybody who understood diesel engines, and as much as we hated all the emissions, looked at that engine and said, what the hell are they thinking? That was the worst abomination of a diesel engine I have ever seen. And we knew that from day one. We know the opposite about the architecture of the Volvo Mack engine. This is the architecture, in my opinion, almost all diesel engines should be built like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was in everything about the truck. I mean, from the comfort, the driver's standpoint,
now
you look up underneath.
Here's what I would say.
The truck, you can get to everything. I mean, if you break a Mack, like the frame or whatever, you should probably be fired. I mean, they make them on dump trucks for a reason.
Yeah. Have you ever driven a newer Volvo?
I looked at the Volvos, and I spec'd one out, like the one that I wanted, and brand new, it was pretty pricey. I spec'd it out to like everything you possibly get. Volvo, and it's not all of them or anything like that by any means, but a fleet that I'm closely connected to, I've watched them fight with Volvo to get them to honor warranties. I watched them fight on the road with them, getting serviced. And
well, Mack is no better.
I don't know.
Mack is no better on the road. I would tell you.
Mack is.
Both of them struggle. I will also say this: Volvo's dealer network
down in middle Wyoming, you got to tow the thing to Salt Lake.
Volvo's service network has gotten much, much better over the years, and now you have some good options. And the same with Mack. But here's the reason why I bring it up. You were making a big deal about the driver comfort, quality, those kind of things. In my opinion, Mack and Volvo are almost identical in a lot of ways, except that one. that Volvo is, in my opinion, the more comfortable, luxurious kind of driver-centered truck, where Mack is still a little more of the work truck, not as much as it used to be. So if you're impressed with like quiet and ride and quality and fit and finish and a little bit of luxury and comfort, the Volvo is the upgrade of the Mack.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like Range Rover and
the Volvo I sat in, I was impressed.
Range Rover and Land Rover. Land Rover is the utility vehicle. Range Rover is the luxury version of it.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's kind of the way I look at Mack and Volvo.
I'm not just Freightliner either, but.
Well, and I said for years, Freightliner was way behind Volvo on quality, fit, finish, quiet, those kind of things. The Cascadia was one of their biggest improvements.
Yeah, let's say I got a couple of the 2019 Cascadias. I've been really impressed with.
Yeah.
Like I said, Freightliner, they've really went above and beyond to help us. I mean, to the point where,
and you know what?
Our Freightliner rep stole a death pump and flew it to us.
That matters.
Literally stole it. But
that matters when we're looking, and we talk about this all the time. As much as I don't like pack car products with an ISX in them these days, there are times where I tell somebody, look, if you have that good of a relationship with your pack car dealer or with the Cummins shop or whatever, then you may want to stick with that platform. And we talk about that. And in this case, it would be the same thing. I want to look at the very best truck first, but then I do have to take into account service and other things. Let's go to Indiana. Jeff, welcome.
Hello.
What's on your mind today?
Talk to me about HRV. I heard you mention a little bit about it a couple times and then yesterday, but I've got a Fitbit.
Okay.
I've been doing it about 3 months, and my lowest is 11, my highest is 22, and I average 16, 17 every day. I assume that is just god awful.
It is. But I always have to be careful because it's been a couple of years since I've used a Fitbit, and I just want to make sure they haven't changed to some other schedule. Most every device I know is measuring HRV the same way, using the same scale. And if this is the same scale as what we see on a Garmin device, these may be some of the lowest numbers I've ever seen.
Yay!
Yeah, you win.
No, because I'm in the high 80s, low 90s on the sleep, whatever that number is, and then my stress management, I'm in the high 80s, low 90s every day on that also. And then I feel good, and then I check the HRV and it says 13, and I'm like,
how old are you?
That's not how. That's 60 and 44 months on carnivore.
Okay, so
we've talked several times before. In Indiana, I used to wrestle.
Oh, that's right. I know. Yeah, I know who I'm talking to now. I'm going to say that HRV is another one of these things we don't know enough about yet. I do believe it's still powerful to use, but I think we're going to get more knowledgeable about this the more people that are able to measure it, the more we do this. We do know this. I'm seeing a lot of practitioners now saying this. Don't compare your number to anybody else's. They are making a bigger deal about that now that, yeah, Ben Greenfield might be at 110. You're never going to get there. One is age.
Right.
Two could just be, some of us are tall and some of us are short, and there are variations in a lot of these things. So the goal and the way to use it is ignore everybody else's and just try to improve yours.
Okay.
Now, I would ask you this. How do you feel, realistically?
I feel the best I have in my entire life.
Then I wouldn't.
Since I started with the keto and then dropped 30 pounds in 3 months, and the joint pain went away in 10 days. That's why this is more for new listeners or whatever. But
right.
Just that and this unsustainable diet that I've been doing and I'll do for the rest of my life of eating meat, fish, butter, and eggs.
Yeah.
you know, is my. I just call it a food plan. I don't even call it a diet or a lifestyle. It's just this is my food plan.
Exactly. So
I feel great. I'll be sick. I just turned 60.
You're kind of an anomaly, and this is why I think we're starting to understand this number. There's still a lot for us to learn. My HRV has dropped pretty significantly from my highs, and I can feel it. I don't feel as good as I used to. I do have a little more muscle pain now if I work out too hard. My brain fog sometimes can take a little while to clear up in the morning. I don't have the crazy yet. Now, I will still say that at 61, I feel much better than I did at 31. I don't feel as good as I did at 57 when I was kind of at my peak and my HRV was up into the 60s, and now it's down in the 30s. And I can feel the difference. I'm wondering if you could get yours, let's say, from 22 was one of your numbers to 40, what you might feel like.
Man, that would be, I mean, like you said, when you were doing your carnivore-ish, but you went strict on your last trip, just how much you didn't think could increase, but you did.
Right.
You're like, I'm feeling the best I have in my life. How is it possible to get better? And then there's still an extra step that you can't.
There is. In almost everything. My energy levels were even better when I thought, my God, how much more energy can I have? My mood, even better. I mean, I could just sit and just be happy for no apparent reason. And I don't have that quite the same way now. I mean, I can feel the difference. And I know what I need to do to get back there. I just got to do it, and life keeps happening. So if I were you, I again, don't really look at your numbers and compare them to mine or anybody else's, but can you consistently start to get yours to come up? That's what I would be focused on.
Well, if I knew how or what to do, I would. I mean, I was, or am, you know, I'm breathing, I'm cold showering, X3ing.
Then
now I don't know if that's I should back off a little bit on that or slow that down. I'm try
not
something different.
That's why I kind of said you're an anomaly. I'm not hearing anything that indicates to me you're overtraining, not even close. When you have sleep scores like that and stress scores like that, it sounds to me like you're doing a lot of things right. This may just turn out to be your HRV range. You may not be able to make a lot more improvements. I don't know. This is kind of the stuff we're still learning. But from what I'm hearing, it almost sounds like you are at your peak, kind of. Like you said it, this is the best I've ever felt. I'm not. I know there was a time I felt better than this. I still feel
right.
Yeah, look, and I'm fortunate and I'm blessed. And if I compare myself, or you too, to other 60-year-olds, it's not even close. I mean, you look at the average 60-year-old today, they're on multiple prescription medications. They have some sort of ailment or multiple ailments that affect them every day. I don't have any of that stuff.
No, me either. But so I just wonder if I am a 17, and if it goes up to 22, that's better. And if it drops to 12, then that's what it is. But if I'm 16, 17, 18, then that's just me.
I think so. And you may see over time that it starts to go up some with all this, or you may not. But the pattern would be to try to stay as close to your top as possible and stay balanced. And that's what went wrong with hardcore carnivore for me. I got to my peak pretty quickly. I mean, my HRV came right back up within 10 days. I had added significant points to my HRV, but it didn't stop, and it climbed so high I went out of balance on that end. Like usually we go out of balance, on the bottom end of the numbers. I went over the top. My nervous system was overactive, and that's not good either. But that's what hardcore. Now, it felt good for me, feeling wise, I would much rather be way up at the top or even over the scale than under. When I feel under, I don't feel good at all. I'm struggling. On this, I felt like Superman. But like I said, it's kind of running a car on nitrous. Man, it runs great, but you can't do this for long.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to double check because I figured that was low, but if that's what mine is, then that's what mine is.
And
I mean, if I knew if I did X, it went up, or if I didn't do X, it went down, I would, do that or stop it. I don't know what is doing.
All you can do is keep watching and looking for patterns.
Okay.
And if you find one, call me.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. If I do, I'll share.
All right.
So if I ever get above 22 and I jump to 40, I'll let you know.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Missouri. Dave, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. As the late Ron Sexton had a character, Floyd the Trucker would say, I've enjoyed your show about killing buffaloes. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but his main character was Donnie Baker. But anyways, you guys were talking about a bison shooting buffaloes.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, I read. Now I know the natives used to round them up and get them stampeding and run them right off the cliff.
Yes. Buffalo jumps, I think they call them.
They could kill hundreds. Yeah. They could kill hundreds at a time. Now I don't know if the U.S. Cavalry or whoever went out there to kill all them buffaloes adopted any of that, but that would make more sense than shooting every one of them singly.
That's a good point. And I used to talk about that series I read. It was written by a husband and wife, and they were, I get all these words confused, anthropologists or whatever. They studied things in the past. I don't know exactly what their specialty was. But they wrote, oh my God, by now I think it's hundreds of books. I've never seen people write so much. But this husband and wife team wrote all these series about prehistoric America. Like, this tribe came over, here somehow and settled in the Great Lakes. And they wrote books about them called The People of the Lakes. Then this tribe settled more in the Midwest around, and they used the rivers, and they were the people of the rivers. And then there were the people of the plains. And but they wrote novels with historic accuracy based on their understanding. And they talked a lot about those buffalo jumps, and the difference being the Native Americans did it, but used every bit of the animal. Nothing went to waste.
Absolutely.
We just left them out there in piles. Yeah.
Right. The white men did it to get rid of the Indians. There's no doubt about it.
Right. Because here's the thing.
It's interesting.
They had been, killing mass amounts of buffalo with these jumps, way more than you ever could do with an arrow, but it was still never enough to hurt the population of bison. Here's one of the things we don't understand.
Absolutely.
I talked about the million, billion, trillion thing and how we don't really comprehend that well. Here's something else we don't comprehend well as humans: time itself. So I can remember, I know exactly where I was. There's in Arizona, if you're leaving Phoenix and you're going up towards Sedona, you're on 17, 2-lane, and somewhere along that stretch is it's like a historical marker, and you go over there and they have the signs, and it was a cliff dwelling site of the Anasazi Indians. And so I was interested, and I went over there, and I'm reading all about it, and it struck me. They talked about this one area of cliff dwellings was inhabited by the Anasazi for 6,000 years.
Yeah, that's something.
6,000 years. Nothing changed during that time. What they were doing at the end of the 6,000 years was pretty much exactly the same as they were doing at the beginning of the 6,000 years. And how old is our country?
Yeah, right.
We're not even 300. These.
Yeah, we're just coming in on 250 for Christ's sake.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
Our country.
Correct. Yeah.
The white man's country. The white man's country. Yeah.
Yeah, but
just
one Indian tribe.
Mesa Verde.
As far as we know, was in that
Mesa Verde National Park.
Yeah, it was in that one place for 6,000 years, and nothing changed.
It's unbelievable. Like I said, I saw the cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde when I was a teenager at Mesa Verde National Park. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's still around. As Kevin Costner has a big, I don't want to say museum in South Dakota, but it's similar to a museum, educational center that he put up after he made that movie about Dances with Wolves.
Right.
So that's I mean, the guy was. He wasn't only acting, man. He was really feeling it. You know what I mean?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And he stayed true to that. I mean, look at what he does today. He did a beautiful special about Yellowstone. Not the series Yellowstone the park. Kevin Costner did an awesome
not the ranch.
Yeah, right. Kevin Costner did an awesome documentary on Yellowstone.
Yeah, it's great. But anyways, I also wanted to tell you that I haven't enjoyed listening to a show so much as I have today.
Oh, really?
I think it was just the open atmosphere and anything goes. You have anything goes a couple of days a week, but you always got a guest and you always got to split off and do something. My opinion, and Angie might have an opinion about this too, you ought to do this at least twice a month. Just one whole day with you. And most of the time I tune in to learn. Today I tuned in to learn, and I was absolutely entertained.
Well, good. I will say I've enjoyed today a lot too. I mean, I really have. This has been a fun show for me.
Well, great. Maybe you ought to consider one or two of these a month, every other week or something. Who knows?
So let me ask you this, because sometimes I do think about this. On a day like today, and you've probably heard several conversations where somebody mentions something, and then I go off on it might be an analogy, but it's totally different. And I catch myself talking about, I don't know, I don't even have an example right now. And I think, is anybody listening to this? Does this even make sense? I mean,
How did we get here? Yeah.
They tuned into a trucking show, and I'm talking about sunspots. So sometimes I wonder.
Well, I get it. And I got to tell you that, when I tune in on Fridays, I want to hear technology and efficiency. So when you guys start going off on them other tangents, sometimes I get a little perturbed, not pissed off, but it just doesn't have a good feel for me. So a lot of those shows, I'll just listen to them on the weekend when I'm traveling, recorded. I could fast forward through some of that stuff. But this here, I mean, and I don't get to listen live every day because of my schedule. I'm a LTL, long distance LTL driver, so I'm working most of these hours.
Yeah.
So I just got to tell you, today I'm driving, and what a wonderful show. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
And that's about all I wanted to tell you.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks. Yeah. No, I've enjoyed it today. And when we go off the rails on any show, whether it's the Power Hour, Destination Health, efficiency on Friday, it's always me. That's me. That's how my mind works. I try to rein it in. And then on days like today, I felt like I'm not going to rein it in at all. I want to talk about buffalo jumps. We'll talk about buffalo jumps. All right. And obviously, it looks like I'm going to end up doing the full 3 hours today. Calls have been busy. They're still busy. So we'll keep going. I think people have liked the show today. Brandy, welcome. Brent. Oh, there you are.
So I listened.
You're really quiet.
Okay, how about this?
That's a little better, and I can
Better?
pull up a little volume on my end. Go ahead.
So after talking to you yesterday, at least I think it was yesterday, I listened to the full 5 hours, and so I have a continuity question for you. Since you read it, I listened to it, and one of the obviously the spoilers. I don't think it matters because the book is just too. It wouldn't matter. You already know what's going to happen. Nuclear war tells you everything that's going to happen.
And you could have told me the entire storyline, and it wouldn't have taken anything away from the book at all. I would have enjoyed it every bit as much if I would have known everything that was going to happen.
Okay, so there's a part in it where they bomb North Korea, whatever the name of that town is, and there's one of the generals or somebody that. Yes, and he's in Seoul, and they're saying it's 50 miles away from that. Well, of all the times that they mention about Washington, D.C. and all of the fireballs and everything that's spreading out, how would they even be able to look at it, let alone get near it? So it's like the continuity is like, was this before or after? So I realized she's writing a book, and she's trying to put things in order. Is she even trying to put things in order? Or is it just, wow?
Well, here's the...
It seems kind of confusing.
It is confusing, but let's think about why it's confusing. Because you're right. But a lot happens in the book, right?
Yes.
You got to try to remember, this is what I mean about human beings and time. We don't comprehend time well. And this is another example of it. All of this stuff that happens in 72 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
well, you would think it'd be in order.
Well,
I guess that's probably what I was thinking.
There is an order, but many things are happening simultaneously. How do you put that in order? When 4 major things are all happening at once. The United States president is contemplating his response, and he's only got 6 minutes. The North Koreans know what they did, and they have a plan, and they're doing something right at this moment too. And now Russia sees ICBMs heading its... Though all of those decisions are being made at the same time, how do you put them in order? You got to figure out which one I'm going to write about first, but that doesn't necessarily mean it happened first. And that's why this whole thing can be a little confusing. And you kind of have to go back and look at it after you read the whole thing and say, I mean, the lesson I got was, oh my God, I can't believe all of this occurred in 72 minutes. But you can see how it would happen.
So with your Kindle, you can go back and look at it. With your Audible, I mean, you kind of can, but you don't know exactly how far you would go back.
Yeah, it's much
harder.
So
I actually ordered the hard book so I could actually have it as a reference book.
Yeah.
And thinking about who could you ever recommend this book to? I recommended it to you. I really didn't think you would ever give it anything because I was like, how am I going to get on this show? Oh, I have an idea. How about nuclear war?
Like I said, I'm going to use the word best. It's one of the best books I've read in a long time. It was so well done as a novel. If I look at it as a novel, it was a really good book. She's an amazing writer, and she knocked this one out of the park, in my opinion. But then when I look at it as a lesson or a warning, it's just really scary and negative.
Yeah. I want to give you a visual of what that might look like from a movie trailer. I actually watched the movie yesterday so I could talk about it and then recommend it, but I would not recommend it. So the movie's called ISS. It's about the International Space Station up in space while the nuclear war takes place while they're up there. The Russians call saying, you need to take control. The Americans say, take control. And then there's a battle. And that's basically your movie. Well, anyway, Yeah. So you can watch the trailer and you can see a visual of what that might look like from space, because it looks scary.
That's I had never thought about that there could be people up there watching this occur.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I thought about. I and I'm still thinking about this. I'm pretty well tied into the news most of the time. I don't watch a lot of TV news anymore, less than an hour a day. Some days, absolutely none. I do read a lot of headlines. If I'm interested, I'll read deeper than the headlines. But I'm pretty well connected because I'm usually staring at a screen for a big part of my day. But then I also got thinking, it's not unusual for me, like right after the show on some, hey Brandy, I am going to mute you because you have it sounds like you just stuck your head out the window at 80 miles an hour. So I've got you muted right now. I'll come back to you in a second. Where was I? Oh, I was thinking about like on today. I mean, I have a coaching call today. After the coaching call, I'm going out to the farm. I'm done for the day. And most of this summer is going to be like that for me. I'm going to be doing my shows, the CMC, and my coaching calls. And I'm trying to add a weekly Twitter space. We'll see. Other than that, I'm going to spend a lot of time away from computers, outdoors, on the farm. I still have my garden at home, so I have 2 gardens to deal with, maybe 3 by the end of summer. And I was thinking about this. When I go out there on a weekend, I might be up at 6:30 in the morning outside, and I might stay outside and not pick up my phone doesn't get turned on most of the time on the weekends anymore, unless I need to find a part or some sort of a diagram on how to fix something or do something. My laptop's not getting turned on. The world in this scenario, and I will tell you, she has me completely convinced that it not only could, but most likely would happen this way. The world would end before many people even knew it happened. 72 minutes. Now, in this scenario, again, I'm giving a lot of the book away. If you don't want to hear it because you haven't read it yet, turn this off. So the first bomb ends up being dropped on California, on a nuclear power plant in California, because it multiplies the effect. Somebody just outside of the range of it catches it on cell phone camera, catches the mushroom cloud, manages to upload it to the internet before the entire internet crashes in California because the power goes out, and that happens quickly. But he managed to get it to the internet. Now people see it and they know it's coming. But what are you going to do? There's a lot of panic. People immediately try to get out of cities, but it's hard to get our mind around everything that occurs in just 72 minutes. And the fact that the majority of the world will miss the end of the world. They won't even know it's happening. It's a crazy way to think. Brandy?
I agree. It's windy here in Carroll Stream, Illinois, so I was getting fuel and trying to protect the microphone, but I couldn't.
You can't in the
The other thing I want to mention, about my chimes. Everywhere I go, every house, on my porch, I got people actually come to my porch to listen to it, as well as I have solar lights that light up.
Let me give you 2 reasons.
My imagination working while I drive.
And if it works for you, you should keep doing it. But let me give you 2 reasons why it can be annoying. Not that I care. I mean, it is what it is. One, if I am right next to a wind chime, they have very what's the right word I want to use here? Very pleasant tones. That's kind of the allure of them. They have a really pleasant tone. The problem is when it's coming out of a noisy truck, across a phone line, through the internet, and then back over somebody else's radio in a noisy truck, there is nothing pleasant about the tones. They are horribly annoying and distracting. So that's one reason why it doesn't work very well when we hear it on the show. Here's the other thing. I don't care how pleasant those tones are. At some point when I have to hear them all day long, they no longer become pleasant.
Yeah.
Well, for
it's
me,
not always that
but
way. They basically tell me how bad the roads are.
I know that without a wind chime.
Yeah, well, you hear it. But the nice thing about it is, like, I was in Wisconsin, where when the rains came, a big old gust of wind, and it rang by itself, which I really like. And that's generally what happens on my porch.
So it's funny that you bring this up, because when my mother-in-law died, Lisa's mom, one of her friends sent us a gift of wind chimes, and they're really nice quality. Like I said, the tones are pleasant. I love the sound of it. We hung ours in our sunroom, and every now and then, it's really rare, every now and then, and we have a lot of wind in the gorge, and if you open a window and a door, or two doors or two windows anywhere in the house, you create wind tunnels in the house. I mean, we just have that much wind. The sunroom is the one room that is kind of away from doors. We usually don't open the windows in there. And when I say sunroom, it looks more like a church cathedral. 22-foot ceilings at the peak, big glass windows on three sides. I mean, it's my favorite room in the house. But we have the wind chimes hanging there off the fireplace mantle. I'm going to say maybe once every 2 months, the right wind occurs within the house when somebody opens a door or something, and the chimes go off. And it's really pleasant. It's a little surprising. And Lisa and I always kind of think about it as that's Mom just saying hello.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I'm not against wind chimes, but I get Jerry's point.
Right. Oh, well, the shaming is kind of working. I mean, when Bruce comes out and says "GD" after the first word out of his mouth, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, but yeah. Well, anyway, that's
right.
Everything. I know the story will die down eventually. So.
It will.
Okay.
Yeah. Good stuff. And we are certainly talking about your book. It's a good recommendation. Let's go to Illinois. Harold, welcome.
I'd say dittos to the guy that was enjoying the show.
Oh, good.
It's always good. But I thought I'd throw something out since you're talking about books mainly today. I mentioned it before, but the Libby app, your local library, you can get thousands of books for free.
That is such a cool thing.
But you can even download them on your Kindle. But I've listened to books since 1982, since we discovered books on tape, and then I went over to the CDs, and I was always paying for rentals, and I would borrow them from the library. But the Libby, since October, I've listened to 74 books.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
You've piqued my... you and Matt probably are the only people I know that have listened to more books than me. But you've piqued my interest on this one, because the only two books I've ever listened to that I've gone back and listened to multiple times and gone back to the chapters were Atlas Shrugged and State of Fear. And now you're saying you're going back and rereading parts of this book, and you've got me intrigued on that one. I'll definitely read it.
It's so
good.
I don't want to overstate this, but It's hard for me to put it up in like my top 3 or top 5 books of all time because the message is just so negative. But the way it was written, the research that went into it, and like I said, I don't know if she's just this good of an author because she's she's an investigative journalist is what she is. I have never written or read anything else she's ever written. In fact, I should probably go look to see what else she has. Maybe not books, but she might have articles, or if she's an investigative journalist, there's got to be a bunch of stuff out there. I just want to see, is this one of those weird flukes? The skill that she wrote this with is pretty incredible. And I think I'm a pretty good judge of books. I read a lot of them. I've been reading them my whole life. Some authors are just really, really talented. And based on this book, and it's so different. I mean, there are formulas you can follow for books and novels and that kind of thing. This does not follow any kind of a formula of most books that I've ever seen. It's in a way, it's just hard to describe. But it was really, really obviously got my attention, and I did not put it down till I finished it.
Well, that definitely says something with the amount of reading you've done. My favorite books are historical fiction, and
me too. I think
I've gone back and listened to Fall of the Giants by Ken Follett, and then he did another one you were talking about, East and West Germany. I don't remember the name of that one, but it was about a family that had actually come from England and Germany, and the trials and tribulations they went through, and actually some of them died trying to escape the communist side there. But it was when you put a story to history like that, it comes alive for me. I was never much on history books, but I love historical fiction, absolutely. And this one sounds like a historical prediction here.
You bring up a really good point there. I mean, if we think about like things we learn in school, history's pretty damn boring most of the time. It doesn't, the way it was taught to me didn't feel real. I couldn't really relate to it. But when I can read good fictional novels based on historic facts, they really are some of my favorite books. And when they're done really well, then to me, it starts to feel real.
Exactly.
It never felt.
It's a great way to learn. You fall in love with the characters, and it really affects you then.
Right. I mean, and it's just across the board, whether it's about war or whatever. When we read about war the way they teach it in a textbook, it just doesn't even come across as real. But if you read a good novel about Vietnam, then to me it feels real. I mean, I can relate to it. And I've known for a long, long time, my whole life. I grew up in the Cold War era. Like I said the other day, the school drills, duck and cover, and, people building bunkers. And that was a thing when I was growing up. And I knew that, yes, over time, and this happened during my lifetime. At the beginning of my lifetime, there weren't a lot of nuclear weapons. I mean, we had them. We dropped them in World War II. But then we started this buildup of them that happened over my lifetime, and we peaked at about 7,000 nuclear weapons in the world. When you understand how much destruction each one can do, it was really kind of ridiculous that we had so many. And we started to get rid of them, and we still are. But we're down to the point now where the U.S. has like 17 or 1,800, and Russia has about 17 or 1,800. And then there are several other countries that have less. I think China's only got like 300 or 400. But they give you all the statistics in the book. North Korea's got some. We're worried about Iran. But it became so much more real to me reading this book than it ever has been. I know I've always heard the thing that, once it starts, everybody will let loose with theirs and the world's going to end. That never felt real to me.
it makes a difference when you can visualize it, and some authors have that talent, and it sounds like this one does.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. Two books that I probably would have never, ever found without recommendations, and I've read them both recently and talked about them a lot because they really impacted the way I thought, and that was The End of the World is Just the Beginning, and now this one, Nuclear War.
Yep, I will get those on my list.
All right, and then call and talk about them.
Always appreciate your tangents that you go on too. You're very good at following tangents in another direction and making sense of everything.
Well, I hope so. Sometimes I
like
wonder.
that.
All right. Well, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. And I do like a day like today. Let's go to South Carolina. Terrence, welcome. Man, I got to turn off the phones. Hold on, Terrence.
What's up?
I got to turn off the phones. It's time to quit, and they keep coming in. All right, we're good. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So you guys were talking about the HRV. So I was, I'm still bummed out about Leanne. It's like coming back,
Yeah.
But I think I got COVID again or something. I was like hacking. I had headaches, muscle aches, and then on top of that, I tweaked something in my arm, pulling a cooler out on Labor Day or Memorial Day, whatever it was. And I haven't been doing the X3 bar, but when I was sick, my stress level was like high, like 40s and 50s, for like days on end.
Right.
I couldn't, obviously I wasn't working out or anything to do the X3 bar, but, and then being that I was hacking, my sleep was down, and I went down I was like 60s, low 60s, 59 on my HRV. I went down to the 40s, but once I started getting, my kick that whatever I had, and I was taking my, my vitamin D, all the stuff I usually do and it finally is just starting to come back now. But I'm curious if I would have been able to, I maintained, like I said, that 60 through all the bullshit I've been dealing with.
Yeah.
I just was wondering how high I could get it, It's just, but my reason why I called really was when that gentleman called in about the, I forget his name, about the HRV, he said something in the beginning about his stress management. It was in the 80s and 90s. I hope he wasn't talking about his stress level, because if his stress level is in the 80s and 90s, that explains why his HRV.
I think there must be a different reading, because I was about to say, oh my God, there's your problem, but he said something.
Yep.
It wasn't his stress level. I think he used the word stress management, and I don't know where that comes from. So I don't know if that's now here's the other thing. I have not worn my watch now for a month. I took off all my wearables. I haven't been tracking anything. There's a reason for it, but and they update the software all the time on the watch and the app. So when I heard him say stress management, I thought he's probably got some reading that I'm not even familiar with, because there's no way his stress level could be up that high. And then there was another number that was actually good. So I was going to ask, and then I got off on a tangent and forgot, but I caught that too.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was like, man, but I'm finally getting over this thing. But man, I tell you, it kicked my ass, and the biggest thing was no sleep. The 1 week I probably had a total of like 18 hours of sleep in 5 days.
Yeah, that's
on my watch.
Yeah, that's bad.
And it was just like, and I was fatigued, but I wasn't tired. You know what I mean? I just was like run down. It just was like brutal. But I don't know what the hell I had. Obviously, I didn't test anything, so I don't know.
I think we've got to be careful of two things. I think the world has become very stressful, and that's hard on all of us. We see the evidence of that. I also believe that the bugs are getting stronger, and we have to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yep.
And the weaker the entire human population becomes, or for us, the U.S., The weaker and sicker we become, the stronger the bugs will become.
Stronger,
I mean,
yeah.
that's just a logical conclusion.
Yep, definitely.
And,
all right, I'll let someone else get. Yeah, like I said, man, it just kicked my ass. I don't know. Finally, I still, getting over it, but it was brutal.
I don't know if it was pure coincidence or not, but I was going through this with all the travel. I kept getting sick. I kept saying, I can't shake this thing. I feel like it's gone for 2 or 3 days, and then it's back. I was doing the same thing. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but it ended the morning I went over to Dr. Wolfson's office and did the workup and got the immune boosting high dose vitamin C IV.
Okay.
Might have been a coincidence.
I don't do any vitamin C. I just
and the only way to do enough, and it wasn't just vitamin C. It's vitamin C. It's zinc. It's I think there might be some copper, and they had a bunch of stuff. It's like a
cocktail. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the big one is the vitamin C. The only way you can get that much vitamin C is by IV.
It's IV. Yep,
it's got to be an IV. Yeah. But and like I said, maybe it was just a coincidence, but that day I felt much better by the end of the day than I did at the beginning. The hacking went away. That I kept saying I had that buildup of phlegm in my throat that no matter what I did, I couldn't clear it. That was awful. That all disappeared that day. And I have not felt like I was sick since then.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back on track. It's just been a long process.
It can be, that's for sure. All right, Terrence, we're going to cut you loose. I got a couple more calls to knock out, and
absolutely, Kev.
I not just going out to the garden. I actually have some things I have to do today. We're supposed to be testing our broadcast app today. We did some last night, but I broke it. That's kind of my role in the company. When they think any of our software, when they think they've got it done, they give it to me, and I'm usually the one that breaks it. And I broke our broadcast app last night. So they fixed it, and I'm going to try to break it again today. And I also have a coaching call. And it's still not too late. If you wanted to sign up for a coaching call right now, you could join us today. Let's go to Oklahoma. Mike, welcome.
Hello. I got 2 words for reading that book and thinking that things are could happen or might happen or will happen.
Yeah.
Or not. Everybody can get themselves worked up pretty good over something that might not happen. I don't know what the percentage is of it happening or not happening, but really there's nothing we can do about it. And I had a life experience when I was 14 years old. I think maybe I talked about it one time, getting caught in the power takeoff shaft out of the back of the tractor hooked up to a manure spreader when I was 14 years old. And I remember that like yesterday. And I remember dying that day. And I guess I woke up 3 or 4 days later. With no bandages on. My entire front and part of my back of my body was like a deep rope burn. I had to let it sweat out. I remember the excruciating pain of it for a couple of weeks in the hospital. But dying wasn't so bad when it happened to me. And I always go back to that anytime I get stressed out. There's not a day goes by that I don't remember it.
I'll bet.
So people get worked up. When people get worked up and think this or that's going to happen, you just step back and think about there's more things in life, and there's a reason why. If you notice on my Facebook or anything I type out, I write Vacation 365 behind it, because we truly are on a vacation in our lives.
Yeah.
If we want to be.
Right.
And if you think otherwise, then you're just going to have a miserable life. And the only thing you can look forward to is what's happening at the present time. And I know people say that, but it's certainly true.
No, let let me kind of give you some of the thoughts I've been through since I read the book. So you know me, I think it's my competitive nature that drives me to always want to be prepared. You know, I want to win. If here's a crazy thought that I have. This is how my brain works. I truly believe that if I were ever in a plane crash, you would appreciate this. If I were ever in a plane crash, I'm convinced if anybody on the plane is going to survive, it's going to be me. I don't know why I think like that, but I really do. My brain believes that. That even in something as crazy as a plane crash where everybody's probably going to die, if anybody's going to survive, it's going to be me. That's just the way I think. And I guess that's why I want to know what's coming and I want to be prepared. And I've done that. And then I sit back and just enjoy my life because I don't have to think about that anymore. This book got me thinking, and it kind of led me to the conclusion you're just talking about right now. If this book happens, and it could, I don't know how else to say this, it could, and like one of the generals said, it could happen tomorrow. And then he corrected himself and said, hell, it could happen this afternoon. And he's right. It could. Right. There is nothing anybody could tell me to convince me, no, it would never happen. You won't convince me of that. When I look at the facts, it could happen. Now let's talk about the solar flare. That could also wipe out the grid across the world and change the world forever. That, according to scientists, will happen. We just don't know when. But it can't not happen. We know it. These solar flares go off all the time. Most of the time they miss us. Most of the time the protection we have from the poles are enough. Now the poles are shifting. If we get it, there's nothing you could say to convince me that it would never happen. But then I got thinking about this one. If it were a solar flare, the world is very survivable if you're prepared. So that there's at least some hope there. So look, I'm going to do the work to be prepared because if it happens, I'm going to win. That's just me. This book takes that away. This book is so bad, there is no surviving this. It doesn't matter how prepared you are. You're not surviving this one. And it could happen. There's nothing anybody could tell me at this point to say it couldn't happen. It absolutely could. But at that point, you think, okay, if it happens, why would I even bother preparing? And why would I waste any time thinking about it? Other than I enjoy talking about the book. But I can promise you, I don't worry about this. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost the opposite. I have, you know me, I talk about gratitude all the time. I have been much more grateful for the life I've had and have now after reading that book, because I do understand it could be wiped out and there's nothing I can do about it. And that's just, you just have to accept that.
We all have to. You know, what I said about, thinking about today and what's happening right now, none of us don't think about, the future. In the trucking, you got to think about where your next load's coming from.
Yeah.
What the competition is, all that stuff. We always have to do that. But I thought about another thing. How would you like to be one? I think I'd rather be on the ground in the earth when all that happens and in 72 minutes it's over with, rather than being on the International Space Station looking down on it and going, oh shit, what are we going to do now?
Now, see, I'm going to go off on one of my tangents. Because you just brought up a scenario of another book, and I read so many books that right at the moment, I can't think of the name of the book, I can't think of the author, and I've read several of his books. He's a fairly recent author for me. I just started reading him in the last couple of years. He writes a lot of stuff about space. He wrote this series that was really interesting that, let me try to remember how this all happened. The weather was changing, kind of climate change thing, but it's not political about climate change. This is way in the future of Earth. We need something, and I can't remember what it was. We need something, and we can fix this problem. But the something we need, we can only get on a planet that is going to take years for somebody to travel to. They have to get to that planet, and it's impossible for them to get back. We don't have the technology to get a craft all the way to this planet to get what we need and get the full craft and the astronauts back. So we know that this is a suicide mission. And somebody's got to volunteer for it. And while you're traveling, you're unconscious. And then when you get to the destination, you wake up, you got to do what you got to do. Then you put this thing, whatever it is we need, onto this little drone, basically, and we can get the drone back to Earth. So this is a suicide mission, but you're going to save civilization and you're going to save Earth. One of the most interesting parts, I'm going to pose this to you now. You know that you're going to die. You're either going to die from starvation or thirst because at some point out there on this planet, you're going to run out of resources. Or nobody wants to go through that. You get to choose how you're going to end your life once you're there and you complete the mission. Then you're going to have a method that you chose ahead of time for basically committing suicide. What would you choose?
Yeah, you'd like to think you'd go right to the end, or you couldn't. You know, maybe right at the end.
Well, that's the other thing.
Hope.
You always
maybe you choose to give up your life so somebody else could eat you or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you also have the choice, like you just said. You can hold out as long as you want, and you know you have this way of just ending it if it gets too bad. But I got thinking about it. I knew immediately what I would do. This will probably freak people out. Here's one of them, and I didn't realize this. See, I learned something from this book, a novel. Do you know if when you starve your body of oxygen, like you hold your breath or you can't breathe for some reason, that panic, that I've got to get air, I've got to get air. Do you realize that has nothing to do with oxygen? That panic is not your body trying to get more oxygen in. That's what we think, because that's what we need to live at that moment. All of those physical feelings come from the fact that your body needs to get out the carbon dioxide.
Oh, yes.
The feeling is not because you need to get oxygen. It's because your body has to get out the carbon dioxide. One of the ways you can diet, and I guess it's very peaceful, is fill up the room with nitrogen. You'll still breathe, and you'll be expelling your carbon dioxide, and you won't feel anything at all. You just die from a lack of oxygen, but you don't feel it.
I'll be done.
I thought that was really fascinating. So I think there were three people. One of them chose that. One of them chose just like an instant, pill. Like, I just swallow the pill and I die, or an injection or whatever it was. Somebody just wanted to go quick. The third guy happened to choose what I had already decided in my mind I was going to do while I was reading the book. And I was pretty surprised that he came up with this. And like I said, a lot of people are going to think this is just crazy. I just want my method. I just want a really good supply, big supply. And I think people know my feelings about drugs. And I have never done this one drug. I've talked about all the drugs I've done over time, and there have been plenty. I've never done this drug. I would want a really big supply of medical grade heroin.
Oh, yeah. LSD or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this. And then at some point, I'm just going to do enough to go to sleep and not wake back up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
That's the way I would do it.
Good piece of cardboard with acid on it.
Yeah.
Been watching Pink Floyd movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah. good idea. I wonder. I've often wondered. I don't know if they would ever say, but all those astronauts, do they have a way of, ending their life or something like that?
I don't know.
If they have something. Is that question?
No, it never really came up in the book. They didn't talk about official NASA and that kind of stuff. It was one of those science fiction kind of books in the future, and you don't even really know what year it is. But that, and here's the other thing I thought of. Just based on my age today and, the life I've had, and I've been pretty blessed, and I would volunteer for a mission like that.
I probably would too. I mean, I'm not going to go out there when there's semis coming along and there's zero chance that I could save somebody by, doing a football tackle to get him out of the way. I'm not going to do it when I know there's
no, absolutely. I mean, this is big enough that you're saving.
But I'm not scared.
Yeah, you're saving all of humanity and the planet. That's pretty noble.
Right. But I just have to say, I just remember that death experience. It was
I'll bet.
Maybe I don't know if you remember, but it was a curtain, like a curtain over a stage, and my brother was running across I was looking actually upside down underneath the manure spreader, and I could see my brother's feet running from across the barnyard towards me. But this curtain was coming down over and it was as sharp as a razor blade and was black as black can be.
Wow.
And that curtain was coming over and covering me up faster than what my foot could. My brother was running towards me.
Yeah.
But everything became real peaceful after about 15 seconds. And I imagine I was in there, that thing was grinding on me for a minute or two.
Right.
But after about 15 seconds, all the pain went away. And a peacefulness come over you. Like it's okay.
There are almost all near-death experiences are described with a lot of similar thoughts and feelings to that. That's a really common theme from people who have clinically been dead and then somehow managed to survive. The stories, and I've read a lot of them, stories are very similar and they sound a lot like yours. That's pretty powerful. All right, final call of the day. We're going to go to Florida. Merrick, you get the last word.
Oh, Kevin, I told Angie that I'm calling to tell you to end the show because I need to get to that book. But now you start to talking about, oh my God, there's been few good shows over the years, but I think this one is the best so
thank
far.
Thank
you need to do that more often, I guess. I don't know.
I'm not
but
sure what I did.
I download that book yesterday or the other day when first Randy recommended. I downloaded right away, and now I didn't get to it.
Yeah.
And now I cannot wait to get to it. So
well, and I want you to call me back and talk about it. Well, you are the final call.
Oh, good. Getting back what you were just talking about with last caller, I got the kind of, I can say, same thing with my life, that I've been in a situation that I should die many times. I've been shot at, and I've been in crashes, motorcycle, car crashes, and other people get hurt, and I walk out with nothing, not a scratch. You know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of what
a couple things that.
I survived a motorcycle crash that most doctors said you probably shouldn't have survived that. That was one of the worst. But maybe that's where this whole attitude that even if I'm in a plane crash, I'm going to survive kind of thing comes from. I don't know. I have a question for you, though. I have a question for you. I want to know more about being shot at.
okay, there is few situations. I've been in Lebanon, in Beirut, when all the war begins, and I had a family there, and my cousin was married to the Palestinian guy, and she moved there, and I used to work on a cargo ship, and we were doing loads, shipping between Yugoslavia, Austria, Greece to Lebanon, and Syria, and all the region. So so I've been there every 2-3 weeks, back to Lebanon for over 3 years, and I seen destruction of Beirut. It was beautiful city.
Yeah,
right.
I've talked about a couple things that we have a hard time kind of comprehending as humans. This is one of those things that we have a hard time comprehending as Americans. Europeans have been through all kinds of wars. Their history is so much longer. They've been exposed. We've been so sheltered from this in the U.S. that we can't comprehend what it's like to live in a war zone. We don't know what that's like. We can't even imagine it.
Right, and that also connects to what we are experiencing now in this country, because of lack of experience of the American people that don't know how bad it could get.
Right.
Because they never experienced that. It's hard to explain. I don't know if I can explain ever.
No, that's kind of my point. You can try to explain it, but I don't think we have the experiences to comprehend it correctly.
Right. Yeah, so sometimes I'm saying maybe Americans deserve what is coming, because I think it will come, all the communism and the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I'm saying that, not to be, because of course I don't want it to happen, but sometimes just talking to people, how ignorant and clueless they are, what is all about, and how hard it could be, the life under any dictator.
We can't even comprehend. We talk about it all the time, but we can't comprehend what's going on in Ukraine right now.
Yes. Oh, that's the biggest bullshit. This is just money laundering, and I also think it's a part of the plan. I don't know if you want to put
we're all
tinfoil hat back on, but
we're all starting to think that way. And part of the reason we're starting to think that way is because all the things over the last 3 years that they said were conspiracy theories, we now see they're true.
Yeah, that's okay. I might now, it will be hard parts probably for everybody to understand what I will say. Let me just try. If it will go the wrong direction, just let me know.
Okay.
I think right now, over the last few years since COVID, the craziness begins. I think it's a part of the plan, and it's to test all of us, and the plan is like the World Economic Forum is New World Order, and all of that is true, and they saying that openly. And anybody who doubt it or don't believe can go to YouTube and watch. They have hours and every meeting that they have, it's on YouTube because they record everything, whatever they say.
Right.
It's boring as hell because, you know, but if you watch it, they openly talking about it, and they, you know, they saying what they want to do, and
I know.
It's already in motion, and
yeah.
So it's really that's how it will end. They will wipe out most of the population in the world, and I believe in that. I mean, you know, there is that part that hope it won't happen. You know, we all have hope that worst thing won't happen, but with this book, what you guys did, I just I think it falls you know, perfectly into that what my theory is, and
yeah. Well, let me give you one more scenario to end the show today, and I'll warn people: it's not positive. It's just not. It's just reality. I am
none of it.
I am an optimist. I am the eternal optimist. I mean, think about it. I just said, even if a plane crashes, I believe I'm the one that's going to survive. That's pretty optimistic. I believe if there's any chance, I'm going to make it. I've always felt that way. That's about as optimistic as you can be. But I look at reality. Yeah. The message in this book, that it's reality. It could happen. But here's something else that is happening. I've made a lot of comparisons to where we are in this economy to the 70s. The stagflation, one of what a lot of people considered one of our worst presidents ever, Jimmy Carter. Really nice guy, just not a very good president. Yeah. We were in really, really bad shape as a country. We had, you know, just coming out of the Vietnam era, which was horrible, all the protests, college kids being shot on campuses, a lot of the same stuff we're seeing today. Stagflation, I've compared that to the economic cycle. What ended that time? And I can tell you clearly what ended that time. And you could say it was him or it was just a coincidence or timing or whatever, but Reagan ended all that. We were in a really bad place as a country, and it got turned around, and it got turned around pretty quickly during the 80s, and I was becoming an adult.
Because Reagan
Reagan united the country in a way that most...
And he...
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, as a Polacks, we really like Reagan because he, you know, he kind of helped, you know, to turn around things in
he did
communist
era.
You know?
He was a big right. Mr. Gorbachev, tear that wall down is his famous statement, and it's the Berlin Wall that I was just talking about, the wall that separated Germany. East and West Germany, and it was Reagan. So here's my problem I'm facing right now that I'm having a hard time being optimistic about. Reagan turned everything around. He united the country. We created a whole new group of voters that they called Reagan Democrats. They were Democrats, but they vote for Reagan as a Republican. He was that good. I don't know how we do that again. Look at what we're facing right now in our election. The 2020 election has to be the worst one of my lifetime. If there was cheating, that's awful. If there wasn't cheating, what the hell happened? I mean, so we had, this will piss everybody off. I think we had two bad candidates. Yeah. And I know people don't want to hear that about Trump. But I think people know what I feel about Trump. And I will just let everybody know, this time I'm voting for him. I haven't ever voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I've been clear about that. But
that's
this time
because what they do, and I'm turning into that too. That, you know, just to.
But here's the thing.
On the other hand,
here's the thing. Trump may fix some policies only if he gets congressional support. So we can't just elect Trump. We got to convert the House and the Senate over to Republican control, or nothing will get done. But even if he gets that, let's say we get all that. Yes, he can change policies. Things might get better based on policy, but the country's going to be a mess. If either one of these guys win, and there are only two choices now, but if either one of them wins, the country is not going to be significantly better off the way it was under Reagan. It just won't be. It could continue to get much worse.
Yeah.
So I'm not optimistic about this one. I want to be, but I'm just not.
Yeah, all of that just drives me crazy because, what I was thinking about Trump before that last, farsa begins, I was thinking about him as a Manchurian candidate.
I know.
And,
let's also think about something else, not the candidate themselves. Let's think about the people that vote for them or support them or for whatever reason, people hate Trump in a way that is irrational. And I am going to make a comparison between the left and the right now. In the last several years, every time the left didn't get what they wanted, what did they do? They riot and they burn things down.
Turn into right.
And they're doing it. They're doing it right now over Israel and Palestine. We see it every single day. Now, Trump, what just happened to Trump was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to a former president or a presidential candidate in my life. Being prosecuted and convicted over something so stupid, really, it's so far out of the norm. And what was the reaction from the right? Well, we're going to win the election and we donated a bunch of money. Nobody's rioting. Nobody's burning things down. So you look at, I just can't see any way that Biden can win this election. And if he does, more than half of the country is going to think it was a fraud and it was cheating, and that's not going to be good. But even if he wins through fraud or whatever, where are we going as a country? We think the guy's shitting his pants right now on TV. I mean, that's how bad this has gotten. He can't run the country for another 4 years. And what's our next choice? The laughing hyena?
Yeah, I think that is they're showing to all of us middle fingers. That is the whatever elites, whatever you want to shadow government. This is their middle fingers for us.
It is
that we can see how they can do anything they want, and we are supposed to be scared because
you're right.
The way I see it, that's the way I see it, because there is for me there is no other explanation. How stupid can be a president, or how
incompetent.
I don't know how
but now let's think about the other scenario.
I mean, there is no responsibility for anything from agencies.
Right.
What they like FBI, CIA, even military. They put in these crazy people. I mean, mentally ill people in positions of the leadership.
Hey, Merrick, I got to cut you loose. I'm looking at the clock. I'm a half hour over, and I have coaching coming up. One final thought, and then I'm going to wrap this up. I can't imagine what the country would look like if Biden wins, or how he could possibly win without cheating, which would be a problem. I mean, that's just the way I see it right now. But I also can't imagine what the country's going to be like if Trump wins, because we know how the left reacts to it, and I can't imagine 4 years of that again. I want to be optimistic, but I'm having a hard time figuring out where the path forward is right now. All right, I got to go get ready for coaching. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.